Greetings, fellow Empyreans. I am Ashtarothi, and this is our stream for the night. This is, we're going to be walking through the design panel. Yesterday, we did the Keynote. We did a total playthrough of the Keynote, pausing it at different points, and we talked about what the goals of the Keynote were, how each piece fit into those goals, both on a micro and macro level, and kind of what went well about that presentation. Today we are going to be discussing the design panel. Obviously, this is less of a production as the other one was. Hold on a second. Let me get a slightly more interesting freeze frame. Okay. So slightly more productive. Or this, hold on a second. Hold on. Okay. All right. So this is going to be way more of a practical panel, right? The audience is very nuts and bolts. It is future stuff. It is unproven stuff. This is CCP Fozzie, CCP Larrikin getting off the stage, so to speak, and being able to talk to us a little bit about what is coming and insights into their kind of philosophies and ideas and all that stuff. That's the point of this particular panel. So we're not going to talk about like the overarching narrative or anything like that, because we don't have that here. We just have some really cool features that we definitely want to talk about. In addition, I actually am going to be on my Discord, which the link should pop up occasionally over wherever it goes. And I will be on there and we'll be talking. I will if it becomes an issue, I will mute myself or mute the Discord when I'm playing, so that way you guys can talk without having a problem, and then we can do little discussions and then move on and so on and so forth. See how that works. If it ends up being too big of a problem, I'll just leave the voice channel and scold you nerds for being asshats. But I don't think that's going to be an issue. Yeah, so Endless, I don't know why, private messaged me. What a good day of Vegas, wasn't it? Almost all the segments were captivating and resounding. Man, so good. So good. Jay McClain's presentation was just moving as a soldier, as a person who's struggling with PTSD, as a person that's struggling with all these kinds of things. The only thing I can think of is the fact that, I haven't been that much involved in it. I am not proud of how much I have not supported them, even though I'm one of the podcasters he came to and talked about it with, and I did promote it and I promote it as much as I possibly can. I'm definitely not as active in the community as I should be, but when I've needed them, they've been there for me at the same time. So I'm gonna see if I can do anything more for him and with him. So expect that. Is everything working? By the way, so on the one hand, I put the Aideron Robotics here because never not promote, right? But on the other hand, I'm wearing a black shirt because I want to wear my Total Eve shirt, and I have a black chair, and with everything else, it's just kind of hard to see everything. So I put that there to let you see what's going on, and kind of give me a bit more pattern because the lighting here isn't perfect yet. But even not just Jay McClain, but that girl who did the wormhole thing, that was an awesome presentation. The starting over in a wormhole, the girl from POS Party, that was a great story. And that's one of the cool things about this whole thing is that, again, it's that focus on stories. So the fact that CCP used this as an opportunity, yeah, they got their game design panel in there, but they really hammered home the fact that these guys got a chance to tell their stories, each one of them. The war vet, the girl who's thrust into way too much responsibility in a wormhole and just tries to find fun out of it. Even the... I can't remember what the middle discussion was right now. There's been so much today, but they really have dialed in what eVegas needs to be about, which is just this celebration of the community and the stories that we build in this game. One of the things that struck me out of all of this is that Eve is hard Not because Eve is complex. Eve is hard because it asks you to actually become the thing that you are role-playing, and is sincerely more difficult to become a real dictator, or become a real market trader, or become a real politician than it takes to play a video game's representation of that thing. And if there's nothing that I can take away from this, and I'm probably going to mention this later because we're not even really officially started. I haven't tweeted it out or anything yet. But what struck me the most is that, you know, if you want to be a politician in Eve, that's fine, but you have to expect to beat everyone else and become one of the top 15 if you want to make it. It's not like an MMO or any other MMO or even any other game where if you follow the guide and you grind the mobs and you do the things and you press the buttons at the right time, you win. Eve's victories, Eve's role-playing asks you to work to become the thing that you want to be in the game. And that is the kind of hard that Eve has that's good. The Eve that's hard because it's hard to figure out how to do the thing, that's the hard that needs to go away, right? The hard that makes Eve difficult to get to those goals, that's the hard that needs to be toned down. And most importantly, the hard that makes Eve hard to understand, hard to come to grips with, those barriers need to go away. So, with all that being said, let's tweet it out, wait a couple minutes, and then we'll walk through the presentation. All right. I tweeted yesterday, holy crap, CCP might be able to pull this stunt off. Like, I don't think, again, there is a very real possibility that every single person that's talking right now about Eve, it will be the minority of Eve players by this time next year. It's totally reasonable. All right. Let's see. Getting some viewers in. I guess we'll wait like maybe 3-4 more minutes before we get started. Hey guys, you here in the voice channel? Anybody here?
I am.
Cool. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn off my push to talk here, so that way when I talk, I'm talking to everybody. And then, like I said on the stream, if I need to, I can mute you guys while I'm like playing the next piece, but I assume that we can, yeah. I'll probably do that just to make sure that there's no problem with like the delay. Because we'll just have to watch the thing, and then I'll unmute and let you guys know that, or you guys let me know, or whatever. We'll just continue the conversation. That's usually how it works, I think, when it comes to like lore panels and stuff.
Okay, I'll just go ahead and just mute the stream then, watch it. That way I'm not getting double.
Yeah, I guess you're right. There's no real need for the visuals, I guess. Or, well, you'll see that anyways. We'll see how it works. All right. Here we go. All right, testing. Nope. Testing real quick. Okay, you can hear this. I don't know how well you're going to be able to hear the stream. If it's not good, let me know, or we'll figure out some other solution or something. I don't even know. But with all that said, let's see. Let me see the viewers. I think it's about time to get started. Let's get started. Let's go ahead and start walking through the balance thing. So for those of you who haven't watched and don't know what's going on, so day 2 was definitely more about the future, which is pretty cool. And there's a lot of nice things in this presentation. As I said earlier, one of the big keys about this presentation as opposed to the keynote is that the audience in this case is not the general public. The keynote was designed for the media, was designed for press releases, and was designed to kind of arm and equip us with the sales pitch to our friends. This is the nuts and bolts. This is a little bit more kind of like what you go to conventions for, like the secrets, the reveals, and all that stuff. They've kept that mostly for this panel, which is nice. Some of them are pretty big. We'll walk through them bit by bit. What I'm not going to do is, like last time, how I talked about the overarching story, or like how the presentation worked on a meta level. That's not necessary here because it's not a cohesive presentation. It's just CCP Fozzie and CCP Rise kind of stepping off the pedestal, so to speak, and talking about what's coming up and showing some of it off and having a good time. So with that being said, let's go ahead and get this started. And let me know if there's any audio things or anything like that. Right now, everything seems to be very healthy on my stream, so I'm going to just assume that everything's well unless somebody yells at me otherwise.
You just made me drop my fucking biscuit in my tea. I hate you.
Hello, everyone. Hello. Hey. Hey, folks. How are y'all doing today? Not too hungover? Yeah. All right. I'm CCP Fozzie.
Oh, fine. All right. I'm CCP Larrikin.
We're both game designers on EVE, and we're going to go through a bit of a game design panel today. So the idea behind this. We are both game designers. We're going to do a short presentation beginning. We're going to talk a little bit about some more details of some stuff coming in Ascension, and then some details.
You're right. It is Larkin, not Rise. My bad.
Not too long after Ascension, and then some stuff that is longer term and may not even happen. Some like concepts that we want to get your feedback on. Most of these are not firm commitments, so please don't come up to us in like 6 months and say, "Where's that thing you promised?" Because we're not promising all of this. Right. We're just saying. Yeah.
CCP promised me a pony.
These are things we want to hear what you guys think about, start getting your feedback, and get the conversation started, because that is where most of the best designs in EVE come from. And we're going to have a lot of time at the end for questions, so what we'll do is we're going to have our presentation, and then we will have CCP Manifest with a mic, and people will be able to just line up and answer or ask questions there at the microphone, and we will answer them to the best of our ability, or evade them to the best of our ability, depending on the question.
All right, hi. So I've already introduced myself, but I'm on Team Phenomenon, and I work with a talented bunch of people, CCP Paradox, CCP Tom B, CCP Freylicious, and CCP Burger. And coming in Ascension, we talked about this yesterday, we're introducing a brand new mining operations. So I want to talk a little bit about these and explain what they are and the thinking behind them, right? So simply put, these are NPCs that will be mining in the belts of space from various empires and pirate corporations. So you'll see them spread out all across New Eden, not just in high-sec, they'll be in low-sec and low-sec as well. And they're kind of a way for us to test the waters with some brand new AI and the way we actually put NPCs into space. So they're not tied around specific objects. Instead, they actually go out there and explore and look for asteroid belts, and if all the asteroid belts are mined out, then they'll go away. And they're kind of the start of something bigger that we've got planned, the start of future tech that we're trying out. So they fly the same ships you guys fly. So their miners are actually ore ships. We have some really cool skins from them, from the different factions and whatnot, and we'll probably show you some of those later. But yeah, they'll be flying ore ships in the asteroid belts, and they will actually deplete the asteroids. So you'll see them mining. If you shoot them after they've mined for a little bit, they'll drop some ore, which you can totally pick up. Or you can shoot their hauler, which comes in and tries to grab that ore from them. So these are the corporations that they are going to be flying from HiSec. You can see all those there. They may not mean much to you, but if you wanted to find a Jupiter Foundry, I think I'm mispronouncing that, a Jupiter Foundry mining operation, I might ask you, where would you go and look? Well, you should probably look near one of their outposts. So all of these mining operations are going to be based about where you would find this stuff naturally. I mean, if I went looking for a Brave Newbies mining operation, I would go and find the Brave Newbies Citadel or station or home station and start looking for that. So mine is like a gank. Same thing with here, guys, exactly the same thing. They distribute out from where their outposts are.
All right, so this is the first point that I have to make, which is that this is pretty big, in particular for something that people have been asking, especially in the lore community, for quite some time, which is that areas of space kind of matter for what you interact with. Now, this is already true somewhat with pirates, but one of the biggest complaints with, for instance, like the Crimson Harvest and other previous events is that there is no real difference between one section of space and another section of space with these sorts of events. So what's interesting about these mining vessels is that it makes areas of space important. It makes different outposts important. And as they've said and hinted at and like straight up said, this is towards something greater. And that something greater, they'll talk about a little bit more later, but basically you're talking about fully immersive AI NPC experience where the empires have patrols, have transportation ships, have all the things that you would think of that a space thing would do, and behave as close as possible as humans would. And that's pretty incredible. Like I said, they talk more about it later on, and it's definitely not like a nearby thing. So, I mean, I would not even imagine this on like a 1 year to 2 year roadmap. That's like 4 or 5 years off kind of stuff. But what we're going to get is more and more chunks of this, which is kind of what I was talking about yesterday when it comes to like transportation ships and combat ships and so on and so forth. All right.
So this is a bit of distribution of the high-sec areas that you will see these mining operations, and if you want to find them, that's where you should go and look. And as I said yesterday, and just earlier, haulers will come and take that ore away. As you're going to mention, they're going to go from miner to miner, collecting all of the ore, just like the plywood, and then walk away. And we've got some plans in the future about what they can do with that ore that I'm kind of going to hint at, but I'm not going to define too much. But if you attack the haulers, if you go and grab the golds and kill them, they have a chance of dropping a strongbox. And a strongbox can be opened by anyone. You don't need keys, you don't need anything special to open these. You can just buy it and open it.
Important point. Oh gosh, I didn't mute myself when I was typing. I apologize. Important point with the lockboxes. Do not take keys. So maybe some of you are not familiar with kind of the free-to-play trappings. In free-to-play, you have these concepts of these kind of lucky lockboxes that you can get, usually as a drop from like the only example I can think of is Nosgoth at the top of my head, which that game's dead now, so but whatever. But like at the end of a mission or at the end of a round, you could potentially get one of these lockboxes. But you also needed the keys. And different games handled this differently, where like you either got the keys in game and then you could get lockboxes on the cash market, or vice versa, or maybe one was super rare drop, or you get the point. Like, they messed with these as a way of encouraging people to buy, and they were a lottery system because what was inside of the lockboxes is random. So what they've done is they've taken the trappings of that random system and whatnot, and they've brought it into the game. So the question is, why would they do that? Well, we know that these kinds of random elements are considered valuable to people because people are willing to pay money in other games in order to produce them. But in EVE, you're actually getting paid these to engage in the content, right? So in EVE, it's kind of different because in other MMOs, the making you pay to buy, or convincing you to buy the stuff to be able to play the game is kind of, or to be able to do things in the game is kind of the shtick of those free-to-play markets. In EVE, the money comes from just convincing you that the game's cool enough that you want to be do an Omega thing, and so be an Omega guy, or the skins and all that kind of stuff. So they don't need these lockboxes to sell keys or whatever. Now, they could later on in the future, obviously, switch over to that if they decide that they need that revenue. I think that would be a poor decision. But most importantly, they're taking those trappings. They know that people like that kind of stuff. They know that people want to deal with lockboxes, but instead of forcing you to pay real-life money, they're only forcing you to gank NPC freighters. So they're giving you a profession in-game instead of a way to get money out of you, which is one of the interesting things that CCP is really doing with this free-to-play transition, is that they're EVE free-to-play has slightly different business goals than even normal free-to-play because of the unique state of EVE Online. And so they can get away with a lot of these sorts of things, where they can use the trappings of free-to-play in order to manufacture certain outcomes. Another good example of this, by the way, is Overwatch, because you've already bought the game, so they use the lockbox system to give value to the process of fighting and leveling up and playing enough to get your levels. The fact that you can buy lockboxes for money is actually just an artificial way of giving those lockboxes value in your mind when they give them to you for free. Okay. Aria says, Archage has boxes, but the value in selling them is because the opening grants bind on pickup items, so there's a bit of random gambling to whether or not you open them. Yeah. And that's kind of the other interesting thing about this game, or about this, is that now it almost reminds me of booster packs, right? So you get a booster pack of cards. You don't know if the actual booster pack contains anything good. So then you can open the booster pack and find out if the booster pack has anything good. And then if it has something good, now you know you have value. But while the booster pack is closed, it has potential value. And that potential value has an interesting market, especially as those booster packs become rarer, right? So, like, trading in booster packs of whatever the latest Magic the Gathering edition is kind of weird, because you might as well just open them and find out which ones are valuable, because they're all just $2.50 or whatever the hell they are. They're probably like $4 now, considering Magic inflation. But if you talk about like alpha sets, or even like legendaries or 3rd edition or any of those old school things, a single pack could be worth a lot of money, not because it has a good card in it, but because it has the potential of great cards in it. Oh, yeah, go ahead, jump in, Fish.
Well, I don't think it's appropriate at this particular time.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah, whenever you feel it's good, go ahead and just, chime in, I guess. All right, so I'm going to move on to the next, or keep watching.
And they contain rare blueprints and skins, and this is a new way that we want to try and introduce loot into EVE Online.
Oh man, my dark mode. Oh, Endless. Is Endless on Discord? Yeah, you are. Go ahead and say what you got to say. No? Okay. We'll move on then.
So you don't know what they have until you try and open them, and then you get that awesome little screen there. But you can totally sell that ability to someone else. So if you decide, well, I know there's a chance I can get like a Rorqual Blood Raider skin, but I don't really want to take the chance, I'm just going to sell it on the market. And
you hear me now?
Take that chance. Some other ideas we're playing around with.
Yeah, I can hear you. What's up?
Oh, so what I was going to say is what I'd like to see them do with these lockboxes is make more of a game out of it. Like, so say you get the lockbox, you have it in your cargo hold. You can now take it back and sell it, or take it to a safe spot in space and jettison it, and then attempt to hack it to get into it. You know, like you have to perform a hacking game. That way, if you don't have the skills, maybe you have a buddy who can hack it for you.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting that they have the hacking interface almost. Like they use the trappings of the UI of hacking in order to be processed in the unlocking phase. I think that the concern at that point would be putting too many steps between people and the rewards, and too many opportunities for failure. One of the biggest concerns with like combat exploration sites is that a lot of them rely on lots of escalations, which are random number on random number on random number. And so every single time you iterate on that, you kind of increase the opportunity for people to not be happy with how many rolls they have to make, if that makes sense. So I could see where it could be a particular challenge to put another challenge between you and unlocking it, because anytime unless the challenge is so easy that it can't be lost, which is effectively kind of what it already is, right? It's kind of a hacking minigame without any, with only cores and no bad things, right? I mean, so the only thing you could do is make it challenging, and if you make it challenging, then you give it the chance of failure, and that would make people unhappy, I think. Now, one of the interesting ideas that I had that was kind of like that would be replace all. I came up with an idea ways back, actually Las Vegas, where Sisters of Eve combat missions should be replaced by pickups from exploration sites, and you could take those items and jettison a laboratory, which is a small deployable, just like a mobile depot, and then you can like stick it in there and it bakes. And it has to be in the same security band as the device that you've discovered. So if you discovered it in wormhole space, it has to be planted in wormhole space. And after 24 hours, if nobody's blown it up, then bink, it opens up, and you get one tier better, right? So high sec would give like a level 1 reward, low sec would give level 2, null sec level 3, wormhole level 4, or whatever, or maybe even just level 3 for any of those. And then if you bake it, you get the reward of one tier higher. But at any rate, that's neither here nor there. These things, I think, are, like I said, it's more or less about opening packs of cards, right? That's literally what these things are. Booster packs.
You might go and get like a Dookia Foundry Strongbox and take it to Dookia Foundry and sell it to them for some ISK, which is kind of weird. You're like ganking their haulers and getting their Strongboxes and selling it to them, but we'll cross that bridge when we get to it.
That's another interesting point. So it's very let's make a deal like, right? So you can either turn in the strong boxes for the known value, or you can open them up and see what it is. And that actually makes it so that strong boxes always have a market, right? Because if anybody wants to try to collect these things to open them themselves, so if Arya suddenly decides that he absolutely needs to have this skin, but he can't afford the 10 billion ISK thing because it's only 1 out of every 1,000 or whatever, he may actually just buy these things from people when he can, but he can't go any lower than what the NPCs are willing to buy it for. So it puts a price floor on somebody who wants to try to just open these packs to get their lucky breaks. Therefore, kind of ensuring value to them.
And like I said yesterday, these NPC miners are a little bit more skittish than you're used to, right? So their jimmies are easily grossled. When you attack them, or in fact, if you just have really bad standings with them and you come into the belt, they'll immediately call for reinforcements, and the miners will actually try and walk away. So on the screen here, I'm just attacking one of these, and soon you'll see the retrievers there trying to warp away, and the respawn forces warp in there and start attacking me and tackling me and disrupting me and everything else that they do. Yeah, so like I said, they react to standings, and this means you can actually kind of use them for defense. Like, so you can go mine in the same belts as these guys do, and if there's some dirty pirate out there with terrible standings to these guys that come in and attack you, they'll come in and attack that guy long before they get to you. And we're really wanting to increase this feeling of having them act naturally like players do. So if you're mining in a belt and someone flashy comes in, you're not going to hang around. Probably not going to hang around. And the response forces are a whole bunch more capable than you might be used to. So they bring DPS, they bring logistics, they bring electronic warfare and tackle. They actually elect a fleet commander amongst themselves that they anchor on, and that fleet commander keeps them at the correct range for the weapons that they have fit. The fits that they run are very close to the player fits. And yeah, they react how you will see players react. Their logistics will actually stay right out of the fight, and they'll try and keep their DPS between themselves and you guys that are attacking them. And the electronic warfare platforms will make much better decisions. So you probably won't see tracking disruptors on your Guardian. Instead, you're going to see neutralizers and sensor damps on your Guardian, and they'll keep the tracking disruptors and missile disruptors for your DPS ships. But like I said earlier, the Empire's...
If I can teach the NPCs to fight, then I can make fighting scenarios for people, is basically the concept. So what we're seeing is, as I was saying yesterday, a shift out from kind of event-based combat, where you go in and there are specific triggers and specific things, to scenario-based combat, which is closer to like the burner missions, where it's like, you may have a general idea of what your forces are, you're up against are, but any given fight may go differently depending on what choices are made.
Asher, right here is where I would like to step in.
Yeah, okay, go ahead. I think my stream might have made a pretty nasty hiccup, so let's give it a couple seconds. Or you tell me if it's working. I don't know why it's my internet has been like tanking in its upload for some reason really quickly. But go ahead. Hopefully it'll work.
Well, like they were saying, you start attacking one of the miners, and the reinforcement fleet comes in to protect the miners so the others can warp out, whatnot. All right, you bring in, say, your friends. You've got 3 or 4 people there with you attacking the miner, and they bring their response fleet. Now, you've got another squad of people waiting for that response fleet to show up. You warp your buddies in, and then all of a sudden, you can take care of that response fleet so much easier. I hope that the response fleet realizes, okay, more people have warped in. We need a bigger response force.
Yeah.
And I'm hoping that is the way that the AI responds.
Yeah, so that's a really good question. One of the things that I think was kind of confusing is that they said it reacts to your fleet, and I wonder if that means that if they meant that like it reacts its size and like the scope of the combat, or if it means that like just it responds to your fleet, like it treats your fleet like a fleet. I'm thinking with the more that they're describing it, it's actually probably more the latter. They haven't actually said anything since that point that seems to suggest that like they upscale based on your forces that I've caught so far. Hey, what's up, Maliko? But it'd be interesting because one of the things that I suggested a year ago when I was talking to Affinity, when she said that was basically what they were going for, was like a director AI. Right, so you have each individual person, but then you had a director which acted as like a field general for the site, and what that director could do is actually ask for support from nearby nodes if required, and potentially eventually players. And if you watch through the rest of it, they kind of talk about that as a notion in the end. So I don't know if these sites are going to be like that. It sounds to me like these are fairly rudimentary, so I'm kind of guessing that the response that you're going to get is just the response that you're going to get regardless of whether or not you bring 100 people or 10 people. But the idea is that it's designed to let you practice different or at least basic maneuvers.
I'd be happy if they just realized that, you know, this guy's flying thorax with the blasters and webs. We should orbit at 10 km, you know, and like react that way.
Yeah, I want to do some experimentation because this is obviously up on Singularity right now. So I'm hoping after FanFest craze, or not FanFest, eVegas craze is going berserk. It looks like my stream's back, by the way. If there is cutting out, I'm also recording locally. Last time I had to pull the stream video to go to YouTube. This time I'm recording locally as well. So even if there's problems with the stream, I will be uploading it to YouTube. And hopefully the local recording won't have any problems. So, any rate, back to what we were talking about, which I kind of forgot exactly what point we were on. I know we were talking about AI and all that stuff, but yeah, remind me.
No, it's basically just you warp in with 3 or 4 guys and get the response fleet, and then you have more guys warp in. I'm hoping that the AI realizes that. And
I think that from my understanding right now, it's kind of like there's a response fleet, which is kind of pseudo predetermined, but you may not from my understanding, you don't know what the response fleet is. So you like do a thing and then a response fleet comes in. And so there's the bait, there's the response fleet, and then there's the hauler, which is the big prize, right? So yeah. That's what I think it is going to be, and then as they move forward with the further advances, then they can start adding in some of that cooler stuff.
Yeah, that sounds good.
All right, so let's keep going.
Aren't the only ones that are doing this. There's going to be pirate ones as well, spread through pirate space, and again, you should look for them where you would expect them. They're probably going to be in stations, in systems with stations, and near those stations as well. We have some future plans for these. So, I mean, I'm going to ask you guys, if you're mining ore, where would you take that ore? Really? Yeah, right. So we want to do that. We want to take it to the next level and actually have these building up into a logical gameplay system where they take ore to, say, shipyards where they might build ships. And
this is actually all black. It's not me.
And as you saw on the overview earlier, we're really trying to change this whole perception about exactly what a ship is, right? We're calling a spade. When you take your first step in EVE and you play some PvE and you learn what an NPC ship does, we really want that experience to carry over to PvP as well. So the miners and the combat forces and all these operations are named after their appropriate type. You probably saw little diamonds before their name. We just put that there to make sure you don't think they're an actual player ship and try and board them. But other than that, we want to keep their names exactly as you would expect. So you'll see Bantams acting as shield logistics, breachers providing target painting support, and executioners running in and tackling.
It's at this point that I start messaging Naiden and I say, so how many victory laps do I get to take? So this is basically exactly what has been needed since the beginning. Like I've been saying for several months now that HiSec needs to be for 2 things. 1, engagement, and 2, education. It's designed to keep people engaged in EVE long enough for something cool to happen, and educate them on what to do when that cool thing happens. That's literally the point of the PvE and HiSec in EVE, or it needs to be. And these really, really focus on that, because not only do they give you something to do and cool things to see and things to look for and explore, and as a leader, as a corporation, you can run some missions, and then now you can be like, hey, let's do a night of like roaming after those mining dudes that we've heard about. Hey, that was fun, you know, whatever. But then you are forced to learn how to play EVE by fighting these PvE people, and lo and behold, your PvE becomes a tutorial system for good PvP, just like, you know, a lot of other video games. I mean, even, again, going back to Overwatch, they have their PvE mode to let you kind of experiment and just trounce all over the AI, but meanwhile, you can safely, in a less judgy manner, you know, walk through the paces of understanding how to fight in this game, instead of always everything being like, oh my god, everything's so serious, which is incredibly intimidating to a lot of people.
Yeah, I can totally relate to that. I've been playing since 2003, and I want to say up until 4 years ago, I dabbled with PvP, but I was too scared because I didn't know what I was doing. But 4 years ago, I got in with a good group, and I've learned a lot about PvP, and I love it. I really do. But as a new player back then, we didn't have this new immersive, the new player experience that's come in, or these NPCs that would escalate type stuff. So that, to me, is a good direction for the new players to learn that, hey, this is actually the base work for learning how to PvP.
Absolutely. Breaking 7 years of bad habits is very hard.
Sorry, that's very true. Yeah, it's maddening to think that like PvE and PvP have been separate for so long, considering the fact that, you know, the clear value of PvE is to get people ready for PvP. You know, so to have a broken PvE is probably one of the reasons why the learning cliff is as bad as it is. And as I was saying in the pre-show, you know, the thing that I think has struck me the most out of all of this today, and watching Vegas and all that stuff, is that it has keyed into me the fact that I completely forgot what I was going to say. Jesus, I even had a big speech about it, and now I'm just nervous because I'm on stream, I guess. Well, I'll come up with it later. Anyway, oh yeah, right. So Eve is hard. I got it now. Hold on. All right. So Eve is hard because role-playing is hard. And when I say that, I don't mean, you know, knowing when to say forsooth or understanding how Amarian politics works is hard. What I'm saying is that fulfilling a role, truly being a role, is difficult, right? Most video games, and this is also why I say that Eve isn't really a video game, because most video games make certain roles fairly easy. They make it mechanic. There's mechanics that cover it up. Like, you don't actually have to be a good game designer to win in Game Design Tycoon. You just have to understand how the sliders work and how the mechanics work, and it kind of leads you, it gives you hints, it teaches you about how to be a good game designer, maybe a little bit, but ultimately you don't need that knowledge to be successful in the game. In Eve, it's a little bit different. There are those things, like to be a good industrialist, you don't have to know how to build things. But on the other hand, we're not actually building things in the game. You're not a craftsman. You are a foreman of sorts, which, in essence, in order to be a good foreman, you have to have, you know, good management skills. You have to have good spreadsheets, and you have to kind of, you know, be able to handle people, which is exactly the skills that you need to be an industrialist past any sort of point in the game. And that's my point. Each role, the role that you fill in Eve, is carved through your actions, not through the mechanics of the game, and that is difficult. If you want to be a space politician, you can, but you have to beat out all but the 14 other people or 13 other people in the entire game that wants to be a space politician, because that's what being a politician is all about. It isn't about checking the dialogue boxes correctly in order to gain the supporters, in order to get the votes so that you get a I win screen. In Eve, the roles that you're challenged to be part of, you are challenged to actually fulfill them, right? And that is what makes Eve hard. And that's the part of Eve's hardness that is interesting and exciting and good. The part of Eve's hardness that's not so good is the part that makes learning and doing those things more difficult. The things that make things obtuse, the interfaces that make things more frustrating than they necessarily need to be, or the the fact that certain mechanics aren't explained well, or that it's sometimes hard to get to a point where you are empowered to do the things that you want to do. Those parts of the game that make the game hard are bad and need to be fixed. But the idea that you become something, you fill a role in this game. If it's grunt, if it's political leader, if it's space bard, you know, whatever role is your role to fill, you define what it is to be that role, and the game tests you on it through its social structures.
I agree wholeheartedly, but for me, I fill so many different roles right now because I choose. That's what I want to do. I love going out PvPing. I'm a DPS guy. I follow my FC's orders. Boom, I do that. When I came back earlier, or at the beginning of this month, I've started doing more industrial sites type of stuff. But I want to do research. I like working with blueprints. I like making copies. I like taking the minerals that the miners mine, and I like building the end product. I don't typically worry about the gather process. I just like the actual building process, and I'm trying to fill that role within my corporation that I'm in. And the CEO he's had me do a job last week for him, which I had the skills for, and I love that. And so you're not just restricted to just one specific role. You can find all these different types of roles that you want to fill, and you can do them when you want.
Yeah, I like to think of that. Thank you so much for that point. It isn't just one role. That's the cool thing. So, you know, in software development, you don't just learn one language. You learn as many different languages as you can, because each language is a different tool in your tool belt. In the same way, like Eve is just millions of different tasks, and mastery of Eve is to slowly collect these tasks and to gain mastery over them. And so, yeah, you're absolutely right. You know, over time, your roles will switch, and you will gain more roles that you're proficient in, and you will find roles that you don't necessarily want to do, or you'll find more roles. There's some roles that you do want to do, and that's the whole thing. Like, one of the things I say is that in Eve, boredom is a lesson, and that lesson is that you should be doing something else. And 9 times out of 10, I think that, well, not 9 times out of 10, for me at least, that usually means doing something else in Eve. I understand some people may want to do something else besides Eve, you know, like take a break, whatever, cool. But what I suggest is that look into other aspects of Eve, because, you know, if you're bored of nullsec, then, you know, try out faction warfare, or try out, you know, hell, if you've never mined before because you've only been told that mining is shit, find a cool mining group, make an alpha alt, get a venture, and go try to find at least some sort of good mining group that's like sitting and bullshitting for like 2 hours or something like that and just mining a belt. It's a fun experience. Do everything, you know, never rule out anything in Eve. As I said the other day, I'm gonna gank somebody with code once, at least. I haven't done it yet, but I'm eventually, I want to get around to it. You know, there's all kinds of different things. But I think we've digressed far enough off of this point, so we're going to keep going with the video.
So that's it on mining operations. I've got something I've kind of been working on, and our team's been working on the side. I'm just going to play the demo through, and then I'll actually explain what it is. So if you kind of miss it, we'll see how this goes. So I'm flying a destroyer, and there is a bomber just up here, and it is launching a bomb, and then I launch a defender missile from my destroyer that goes and blows up that bomb.
Okay, let's unpack that real quick. So defender missiles right now, for those of you who don't know, and it's okay if you don't because they're freaking useless, are, they're not useless, but whatever, arguable levels of uselessness. So they function as a missile launcher, or as a type of missile, rather, that they shoot other missiles. So if the enemy is shooting a bunch of missiles, your defender missiles will work as kind of a chafe screening for those missiles. The problem is that they're not that great. They kind of have pretty limited application and don't work as cool as most people would expect. So nobody ever uses them. So kind of defender missiles and making them work has always been one of those kind of dream items that's up there with command bursts and other kind of lofty, it's never going to happen kind of stuff. It appears that their new idea is to use these defender missiles for, instead of using them to clear missiles, they're now used to clear bombs, which is a pretty interesting change of role, but a super cool one. So let's keep watching.
So this has been like the dream, right? No, not believing. This has been the dream, right? We've wanted to do this for so long, and yeah, hopefully coming this December, we're going to be introducing the brand new fleet defense system. So to give you a little bit of information about how this works, there is a launcher platform that you need to put on a ship, and this goes on a destroyer. What? What?
Dicks out for Harambe.
So like I said, these launchers can only be put on your destroyers, and that includes Tech 2 destroyers as well. And the launcher will cycle regardless of whether or not it goes and intercepts a bomb. So if you press that button, that launcher is going to cycle. It won't launch a missile if there's no bomb, but it will cycle. And then there's a 120-second reactivation timer. So you can't just mash this, right? You actually need to like pick your time to launch the defender missile. And we're probably going to give command destroyers a little bit of a bonus to the reactivation timer, so that yeah, you can use those to try and screen your fleets.
So destroyers, interesting choice. Very interesting choice. By the way, before we talk about this, I want to highlight Endless posted in chat that his CEO at the very beginning when he first joined said, "How do you win at EVE? Easy. You find what you have fun doing and strive to be better at it every time you log in." And I really like that notion. I like to say the secret to EVE is to find out what you want to do and then find somebody that can help you do it. But yeah, I like that even better. So, any rate, why destroyers? That's an interesting question. So we've gotten tactical destroyers, command destroyers, and now missile launchers that only fit on destroyer vessels. This is telling me that they really like the position of destroyers, but they feel... so what I think is going to happen is frigates are designed for tackle, cruisers are designed for and disruption. Cruisers are designed for heavy disruption and kind of screening and flanking, as they even describe in the new MPE. And that leaves destroyers as kind of this not support role, but kind of like gimmick role, so to speak. And so this fits into that, because they need people to feel kind of valuable. But more importantly, what's interesting about this decision is it makes a valuable fleet function that is most suitably performed by alpha clones. Because an omega clone fitting this rocket launcher is potentially giving up a slot that can be applied to one of their other things. But this is non-determinate on skills that are outside of their venue. And it's on ships that they can fly. And Omega clones can do them a little bit better in command destroyers. But Alpha clones now have a really solid skill-based role in larger fleet fights, on top of all of the other benefits, like, for instance, the fact that it makes it so that bomber fleets are less omnipotent in large-scale combat, so on and so forth. So really interesting decision to lock it to destroyers, but very telling about where they feel the balance of power is right now. Another interesting question, if you want to like really chew on it for a little while, we could phrase another question, which is, why isn't this on battlecruisers? But we'll get to that, or that might be a thought experiment for another day. And I'm not saying they should be on battle cruisers. Just questioning.
Sorry, a launcher hardpoint. So it's going to be a lot like fireworks launchers. You can put.
Hold up, I got some questions. Oh wow, there's lots of questions. So let's get to them real quick. Twitch Charia, how much does EVE Online cost to play? So there are, as of the 15th, there's going to be 2 different modes for the game. Either you can play it for free as an alpha clone, or you can play it as $15 a month for an omega clone. You also can pay for your month subscription via in-game items, which you can buy and sell on the market. So if somebody needs extra cash, they can buy game time and sell it on the market to other people who have excess cash. Another thing to note is that alpha accounts, unlike other free-to-play games, are not actually cordoned off from any kind of experience-based content. They can't do some of the bigger stuff, and they can't do some of the more sophisticated roles. But there's basically nothing that you would be doing in the first several months of gameplay that you cannot do perfectly well as an alpha. And I strongly stress several months, because EVE Online is a game that takes place over months and years and not days and weeks. And that is the biggest thing that I can recommend to you when it comes to looking into whether or not you want to play the game. Do not see the alpha account as being restricted, because you basically will not feel the restrictions of an alpha account until at least 4 or 5 months into the game. As far as your ability to jump into the action, for instance, Aderon Robotics is the premier corporation for Galente alpha clones. We function in faction warfare, where we fly for the Federation against the Caldari state in a perpetual war. And we have use for troops as early as, I think, 13 hours of training in, which is nothing. So, if you're interested in getting into the game, and by the way, I'm not talking about bullshit content either. This isn't like you must get to this level to do something. I cannot stress that enough. If you join the game, I would have you in key roles, as key of a role as you feel comfortable with your training levels. Basically, before you can, I guarantee you, I would have a role for you before you feel comfortable doing it. But so it's mostly about learning the game, and not in-game restrictions. And that's totally not bullshitting you. As far as whether or not you should wait or not, that's a really good question. 13 hours now or 13 alpha hours at now. And what I'm going to say to that is that by November 15th, Aderon Robotics will have a skill plan to utilize your 250,000 SP. If you use a buddy link, which I should totally get a buddy link on my Twitch stream, I will do that tomorrow. If you get a buddy link and you use a buddy link of any kind on the 15th, you will be given 250,000 SP, which is approximately 2 weeks, week to 2 weeks worth of training for free. And we will give you the guide that basically says, hey, take those SP, plug in these skills, boom, you're good to go. Alpha clones will train, but they train in real time, but they train slower. They train at half rate as omega clones. But like I said, that 250,000 SP basically means that you can be good to go, ready to go as a militiaman in doing complexes and fighting in wars and screaming tackle, which are all things I promise you, literally as soon as you hit the button. So, yeah, you know what, Endless? I'm not ready for it. So go ahead and drop your link now. Use Endless's link. He's a good guy. But again, I strongly recommend you wait until the 15th, because then the new player experience will be in. That new player experience also comes with a micro skill injector, which is even more SP. SP is skill points, which is how we unlock things in the game, is by skill points that are accrued over time. Caldari Corp, if you want to be part of Caldari Militia, I'm not sure what the exact answer is for alpha clones, but I do know that Templus is one of the most active Caldari corporations in the state right now. And so if you find somebody in Templus, they'll either be able to take you in or point you in the correct direction, and then come die a few times and flee it whenever you want. All right. I think that probably about covers all of the questions. So let's keep going.
Put this on anything. You don't just need to bring Caldari ships for this. And alpha players will probably be, definitely be able to fit these, so you can totally bring your alpha friends along to screen your battleship fleet or your attack battlecruiser fleet or whatever you want to do.
All right. There's another question. So sorry. But will new player experience actually walk me through things or put me in the middle of space with just an interface and a face telling me that Eve is a large universe? So they've completely revamped the new player experience into a thing called the Inception MPE, Inception New Player Experience, which is a fully voice-acted guide that uses visuals and audio and really solid learning development patterns in order to teach you how to play the game while simultaneously making you feel really freaking awesome. So don't worry about that at all. They are retooling the game specifically for new players coming in with the free-to-play.
Yeah, I would like to say from the videos I've seen with the new player experience, they'll show you, okay, how to fit a module. And then you should go out in space. You have a little bit of combat. They show you, okay, this is how you lock the target. This is how you fire your weapon at them. And after you do that, then it will take you a step further and say, okay, here's a scenario for you to do exactly what we just showed you how to do to make sure you understand this is how you lock the target. This is how you approach them. This is how you fire your weapon at them.
So these are all coming.
Yep. Exactly. So, but we're going to jump back into this because hopefully people that are watching this are more interested in what's coming and for us, those of us who are experienced in the game, and not just alphas. So let's jump into that.
In December, there will be a brand new launcher that I was just telling you about, but all the existing heavy and light defender missiles will be converted to the new, we'll just call them defenders. I'm not actually going to call them a defender, pseudo-relativistic kill vehicle. But yeah. They'll be converted to this? Sorry? I don't know what you're talking about. They're going to have about a 45-kilometer range, and they launch at a random bomb. So you don't select their bomb they go after. They don't believe in friend or foe or any business like that. They just find a bomb and go after it and kill it. So you're going to need to actually train your guys that are trying to screen from bombs pretty well. You need to set up different waves to take at the different waves of bombs, and you can totally fool people in, launch them. Bring some bombers in, launch a bomb or two, have them waste their entire shot of defender missiles and bring in the real bombing fleet as well. Or you can just snipe them off. Or yeah, there's lots of ways of countering this on both sides. The destroyed bomb, the missile that they go after, the bomb that the missile goes after does no damage. It still explodes, but it does absolutely no damage at all. It just looks cool. And yeah, like I said, all light and heavy defender missiles will be converted. So I've just got one more demo of it showing off, and then to show the reactivation timer, and we'll also get a demo of what happens when there's no target. So you can see the bomb there, and boom. And you can see the reactivation, it's just reset. Rubbish. And yeah, like I said, if you try and activate this when there is no bomb, you'll get a message saying, hey, I can't find any targets, and the reactivation timer will play. But that's it.
So I really want to stress this reactivation timer deal because it's the big thing, right? So you get one bomb every 2 minutes. That's where the counterplay comes in. I think that a lot of the people that ask questions about that didn't quite understand that 120 seconds is 2 freaking minutes. So if you can cause people to waste these defender missiles, you can really leave a fleet naked for a period of time. And what's nice is that with the threat of bombs suppressed by the use of these screening fleets, you're going to see more ships that are vulnerable to bombs being used, which means proper deployment of bombs will be even more devastating. Hey, thanks, Nerbs. But yeah, that's what I have to say about that.
For me. Oh yeah, sorry, one other thing. You can only put one launcher per ship, so you can't just like load up a rack of these on a destroyer and save the world. But we are going to have fairly low fitting costs, so yeah, you can totally do other things in your destroyer, like put them into dictors rather, and put damage on them, or whatever you want to do.
Yeah, so these can go into utility high for a sniper destroyer that's helping clear tackle. It can go in your command destroyers, in your Tech 3 destroyers, in your dictors, wherever you've got destroyers in your fleet.
Yep.
Well, if you have any questions about it, we'll be able to answer them at the end of the presentation. All right, I'm going to talk a little bit about what we're working on with structures. This is not going to go into a huge amount of detail, but wanted to give you guys an update, basically. Of course, we are releasing engineering complexes in Ascension. This is what our focus is right now, getting these things polished, getting them ready to go, and being ready to respond to any problems that come up with them, any feedback that we get from players after launch. After Ascension, we're going to be spending a solid amount of time focusing on adding new features to all of the existing structures. Rather than jumping right into working on the next set of structures, our next priority after releasing the engineering complexes is to go through some of these requests that have been outstanding for a long time that we know players really want, and that add features that then are in both Citadels and engineering complexes and in all the future structures as well. The high priority stuff, we want to get insurance working in Citadels and engineering complexes. We know that's been one of the things that you guys really want to see, and we really want to see it as well. Dropbox is what we're calling the ability to place items from outside of the structure into your hangar, even if you can't dock, which makes it a lot easier to get stuff into your Citadel or engineering complex easily without having to dock and undock or with a larger ship. Also means that you'll be able to, say, complete a courier contract even if you don't have docking access. You'd still be able to place items into the structure. So that's something that, one of the things that's high on our priority list. We want to get improved API access. This is something we're working with our internal tech tools team that is working on the API. They've been focused very heavily on the mobile app, but a lot of the work they're doing for the mobile app is actually going to help carry forward into some of this, and we're going to be supporting them with 5.0 as much as we can. And also reducing the bumping of ships when they're tethered is one of the other priorities we have. So I can't promise exact schedules for these, and this is just a list of things that we know we're working on. We want to hear from you guys what else you think is really high priority. Is there stuff that should be ahead of these on priority? Is there other stuff you think should be on this list? Come talk to us, let us know, and let your CSM members know. There's a lot of ways to get these things onto our priority list. The next line of structures that we'll be introducing after we spend some time working on the functionality of all of these structures is the drilling platforms. I don't have a whole set of new info on the drilling platforms to give you. It's similar to what we've said before. These are the structures that are going to be bonused for moon mining. They're going to be the structures that are bonused for refining. There aren't any special refining bonuses for engineering complexes. I know some players have been a bit confused by that. Engineering complexes are going to have exactly the same refining capability as Citadels. But the drilling platforms are going to be the structures that are bonused specifically for these kind of resource extraction and refining operations.
Okay, so I wish that I had paused it like a second earlier. Hold on. Let me see if I can find it. There we go. Okay, so let me unmute this. All right. Having so many things to unmute at the same time, kind of complicated. Must figure out a better system. All right, so here we have kind of what is going on. I was actually expecting a lot more information about drilling platforms. The one thing I can predict at this point is that they're obviously not going to be called drilling platforms in the end. They sound like they're more just like a resource processing center, a foundry of sorts, where moon mining is one of the functions that they have, which is kind of interesting. Okay, so, but it really sounds like, you know, the notion that drilling platforms are coming in winter will either be strongly pushed into like Icelandic winter, which is like April, or might just slip a little bit. So didn't get a solid idea, didn't get a preview shot of them. That's a kind of a big deal, unless the art panel might show off some stuff of the drilling platforms. That's actually entirely possible. But what we see is a circling back on the functions of Citadels and engineering complexes and a real shoring up of those capabilities. which is important because there's a lot of lack of faith in citadels and other structures at the moment for precisely these problems. And actually later on, somebody points out that you can't death clone in citadels either, and they actually seemed as if they were oblivious to that being a problem prior to that, which was kind of surprising. But yeah, obviously there's a lot of quality of life to go in order to make citadels feel as good as stations, or as feel like home, as it were, or not citadels, but yeah, structures in general, to make them feel like they're functional. The Dropbox is a huge one for anyone, because there's a big deal about people like making contracts and locking them out, and people said, oh, that's kind of funny, but it really, like, the fact that it's being removed isn't necessarily a bad thing. I think more it kind of adds a degree of sophistication to citadels that they just needed. It also makes it so that roke walls can deliver their ore to medium citadels and medium engineering complexes without being able to dock in them, and that is huge. That's a big deal, because one of the big problems with roke walls right now is that they can't dock in the citadel, so therefore they can't deliver the ore that they are hauling. So unless you have a freaking keep star, you can't use a citadel to support your mining fleet, and that's nonsense. So this is going to fix that problem as well. Anything the gallery has to say?
I do like the fact that they touch on the improved API access, and I think that's more for like third-party sites like EveThing. I know right now I have stuff in the citadels like the Astra House. I have a lot of stuff in Astra Houses right now, but according to EveThing, it's not there.
Yeah, that's a good point too. And in fact, I actually made the point that engineering complexes would live or die on the ability to search in stations, or not stations, but search in structures. And we've gotten confirmed that that is coming, or here, or yeah, I think it's just coming in Ascension, which is the ability to search assets in game in your stations or in your citadels and structures. Which is super important, obviously, especially if you're going to do industry in them. So that's why I was saying it was essential. The API is actually super important, too. Right now, our CFO, our delivery system, has complained about the fact that any Citadel-based deliveries don't actually tell you which Citadel it goes to or something like that. Like, I don't know all the details. But basically, the contracts, while they work, they don't work well through the API, which means our automated systems to allow our logistics, as in haulers, to get things done, tend to break down. So, or not break down, but have a harder time, let's just say that, keeping track of everything. So improved API access is a big thing. And the nice thing I like is that with this mobile app, it's really important because for a long time, API support was like a labor of love, and that's code for if nobody at CCP actively cares about it in their free time, then it doesn't happen. Like, for instance, Falcon and Affinity and Delegate Zero are like the reason why lore exists still. There's other people too, but I mean, like, they really put in the hours, the extra hours, in order to make that happen. In the same way that Fox 4 was a huge hero for the Eve API. Before him, it just kind of wallered in forgotten, or lack of support, let's just say that. But with this new app, you actually have a dedicated paid-for design force that's looking at the API. And that makes it so much more valuable. That makes it so that, API-based chat might work. All those kinds of things that we've ever wanted from the API but have never been able to get, those may start to unlock as we have better support for the third-party development. Because from my understanding, everything that they're doing in the app, they're trying to build the tools and open them up, all of the data that the app is doing. Now, this is not confirmed. I heard this in whisperings in one of the dev chat, or in the dev fleet, I think, that like all of the functionality of the app is designed to be done using only public APIs. So obviously, if they want to increase capabilities, they've got to increase the public API as well. Whew.
I think it would be nice if they incorporated obtaining your API into the new player experience, because lots of them don't even know how to get it.
Yeah, I think that's one of the reasons why we're moving towards SSO and Crest. The more you can do that, the more you can just be like, validate that you're me, and then doom, and then you use that mechanic as a way to validate things instead of an API key. Otherwise, I agree with you. But I think that the actual dream is to move more things to SSO validation as opposed to API-based or API key-based validation. There's a difference between an API and an API key. An API is an application programming interface, which is basically a set of rules that says if you hit this address with this command, I will respond with this information. That is an API. An API key in this case is you have to know the key in order to access the data. That is your authority within the system to receive that data. So it is part of the API that you must send the key with your request in order to validate the response, right? Or more importantly, so that they know which character they're talking about or who to return back data for. So they can make the API more robust while actually phasing out the notion of API keys.
That was really well said.
Say again?
I said that was really well said.
Thank you. Well, I mean, I was a software developer for years. Yeah, so they were very quiet on the development of it, but I knew that they kept working on it. People whispered to me, and I've had several people that are kind of in the know be like, breathe. Not only is it coming, but it's going to be good. I know Siegel's confirmed to me that the Eve app is going to be natively programmed for both Android and iOS, which as an Android programmer, I've been an Android programmer for 6 years, I cannot strongly edit like that fact alone. Like as soon as she said it is being developed natively, I was like, you know what? I trust it. Because the trapping of using something like PhoneGap or anything like that is incredibly tempting for a lot of software development sites. And so as an Android programmer, I can respect the decision for them to decide to do things natively. It'll make a better app, and it gives them far more control over how things work and being able to make a more polished product. But it looks like they're going to release it on the 15th. It's going to have calendar interface, mail, in-game mail, sending and receiving, which that's going to be big. Looks like you can look at your skills, kind of like an armory system. And I can't remember what else. I think also your assets, but I'm not 100% sure. They are taking feedback for additional features that they want, and like I said, it's going to be live on the 15th. It'd be great if they had a widget like Aura, and it'd be awesome if they had Corp Chat. Honestly, I think Corp Chat is there's two features that I want to see in a mobile app more than anything that I'm pretty sure are not going to be part of this app, but I hope they add in later. One is Corp Chat, or rather, one is chatting. I think that you should be able to join any in-game chat and make it so that I can actually chat in-game, out of game, instead of having to use Discord for everything. But also PI, obviously. I mean, PI on tablet, please. That's it. I don't make PI fun. Who cares? I mean, like, yeah, it's going to make PI worth a little bit less on the market. It's also going to make PI fun to do. So why not? Like, anyway.
PI is not fun?
Well, I do PI. I mean, it's fine. There's definitely things wrong with PI. That is out of the scope of this conversation, so I'm going to just put a pin on that one.
Save that for another panel.
Yeah. All right. So let's go ahead and proceed, because we're supposed to be talking about structures, and now we're talking about the API. Moving on.
The drilling platforms to give you, similar to what we've said before, these are the structures that are going to be bonus for moon mining. They're going to be the structures that are bonus for refining. There aren't any big influx of new player ammo or Tech 2 ammo working in the faction weapons.
I kind of skipped around a little bit here, but we're just going to poke at this because I skipped around because I tried to go back or whatever, and it was a fail, and I'm sorry. But, okay, so this is high stuff on the priority list. This is really, really important because this is CCP attempting to communicate, which is really good because in the balance scene, like there's this weird balance of information versus no information. So, like, for instance, if you go to JITA right now and you look at the market for assault frigates, I guarantee you they went up at approximately whenever this presentation happened this afternoon. You know, because that's how things work. And when the assault frigate details are actually announced, they're going to go up even more, or, you know, you'll see another spike or whatever. Because obviously with the current state of assault frigates, they're only going to go up, right? Like, they're not, just like they're not going to buff the Spitpole for the T3 rebalance, they're also not going to nerf assault frigates for this balance pass. So it's pretty confident to say that, well, this is basically saying that by February, let's say, chances are assault frigates are going to be a lot more interesting and fun. And with what they're doing with kind of manual activities and skill-based activities, it'll be interesting to see what they do with assault frigates. I've done a couple of neat little design jams where we've thought about what you could do with assault frigates that are like out of the box and kind of crazy stuff, like you know, a module that makes them immune to being pointed, or, you know, I don't know. There's all kinds of weird things that you can do, and I'm not, by the way, not saying that last one was a good idea. I'm just like, there's all kinds of things that you could just be like, what happens if we do this, and, you know, see what happens. What's up?
Put warp bubble nullification on them.
Well, interceptors already have that, right? So it'd be interesting to find something else. And so the idea would be that, like, assault frigates are designed to be, like, in there, in the mix, getting all work. Oh, no, you know what it was? Webification and E-War resistances. Give them huge resistances to E-War, like almost like a Bastion module, but so that way they can kind of zip in there and just screw with people without being screwed with themselves. That's what I came up with.
Honestly, I cannot remember the last time I flew an assault frigate. It's been that long.
Yeah, the only reason why they're good is because you need a frigate that, like, people don't realize exactly how hard it punches, and you like the Enyo. And Harpies are very valuable, I think. I'm pretty sure. I've seen them deployed a lot, especially with, like, Tech 2 logistics. There are some assault frigates in particular that are tough nuts to crack, and that is valuable. But other than that, they're kind of, as some people have pointed out, almost supplanted in every way by the Tech 3 destroyers. Okay, and then frigate and cruiser tweaks, depending on what we see from Ascension. Again, a lot of their focus is going to be on alpha clone ships. Because A, they're going to be the new people that need more support, and B, they're the ones that are going to hyper accentuate how broken things are, right? Like, in the same way you can't really rebalance faction warfare right now because we don't know what happens when the population of faction warfare increases by tenfold, but we might find out very soon. And so it'll be important to fix those the leaks that spring, and in a lot of ways, you see some of that here. They did note that the relationship of those specific weapon systems are big, and then command ship tweaks, depending on what we see from Ascension, is important, because a lot of people are actually starting to expect a pretty big command ship rework for Ascension, even though Fozzie has specifically said that the balance pass for Ascension is going to be relatively minor. So don't expect to see a really big command ship rebalance now, but after the rollout, they'll see how they work, because, you know, they may be just fine. You know, their ineffectiveness, or not ineffectiveness, but their weaknesses that they currently have may in fact just end up working out because of how important these boosts are, or how pivotal that gameplay is. So you know, it's almost impossible to know how to truly balance them. So I kind of appreciate that decision. All right, let's keep going.
Just something that we've said before we want to do, and I know a lot of people are really excited about that. We also have a set of changes that we're kind of setting aside time for based on the Ascension release. We know that once we get this big influx of new players that are going to be focused on using Tech 1 frigates and destroyers and cruisers, that there's going to be some balance concerns that are going to come up there. Both just ships that are out of line, but also balance between the different factions, because people are going to be locked into their factions. And we're going to get a lot of feedback about that, and we know we are. And so we want to set aside time to be able to respond to some of those balance updates that we need to do. So that's going to be high on our priority list. As well, command ships, watching what happens as the new command bursts get released and as people's behavior changes and what kind of things are needed for that. So we've got time set aside for that as well. Also high on our priority list, there's some medium weapon systems that are both, some are a bit too powerful, some a bit underpowered. Rapid light missile launchers are a bit too strong right now. We're going to be taking a look at that, which of course is very heavily connected to the Orthrus and some of the power there. Heavy missiles need some more looks. We've done some passes on them not too long ago, but we're going to be giving them some more looks. And medium autocannons are a little bit underpowered right now, so we're going to be giving them a pass as well. So those are all high on our priority list. And of course, one of the most requested items now that we've got the Tech 3s touched very recently is assault frigates, and we're going to be taking a look at those.
What's up, Fishbone? Oh. Hold on. What's up, Fishbone?
Well, I noticed Fozzie said with the new influx of players, actually, hold on, let me mute that. He said, okay, so I started a new Alpha clone and I chose Galante. He said that the new players will be locked into that faction. Does that mean I can't learn Mimitar ships or something like that?
That is correct. So the way that Alpha works is that you are locked into T1 frigates, destroyers, and cruisers for your race. So, you know, if the character you made 4 years ago is Minmatar and you stop paying and he lapses into Alpha, you will only be able to use Minmatar frigates, destroyers, and cruisers.
Okay, yeah, I picked up on that when he was giving the presentation, and I when hearing it again the second time, it's like, wait a second, I wanted to ask for verification.
Yep, that's actually, there's a lot of interesting things that come out of it. It makes it so that pirate ships are out of the reach of alphas. It makes it so that your SP stays below 4 million or 5 million, which is kind of a key cutoff point, especially with you know, extractors. And there's another big point about that too. Oh, it reduces complexity, right? So in the beginning, you're told you're told to choose which of the 4 races you want to be, and then that choice never actually helps you at all, and it never does anything for you. And so the idea that, you know, instead of just being like, here's everything, instead it's like, you want Ewar and your Amar, here's your Amarian Ewar. You want Logi and your Galente, here's what your logistics ship looks like. You want exploration and your Caldari, here's your Heron. Ha ha ha. Any rate, so that's kind of, I mean, I like it that way, because here's the thing: a lot of people have complained that it's like, well, being racially locked kind of sucks. What if a person discovers that there's something else that they want to do? Accounts are free, guys. You want to try out Amarian Ewar, build an entire account and just train to that. Don't train it on your one. I mean, eventually all of your alpha clones will be able to do everything, and then it won't matter. But you know, if you want to train Ewar, you can train into any given thing of alpha relatively quickly on a whole new account.
Okay, yeah, like I said, I just hearing it again. I just, like I said, I had to ask.
Yep, it's a good question, because it is an important note. And what's interesting is that it's something that's going to be relatively commonplace and just a fact that is known for the new players, but for us old people, it's a totally anathemic. I think I just made up that word, but you know, it's a concept that is anathema to us. Anathemic. I like it. All right, carrying on.
Can't promise when we're going to have a pass-in on those, but they're also up on that list. So we're going to be taking a look at them, and we're really, really interested in hearing your feedback, what kind of things you would like to see done with these ships. So this next slide here, I want to do, this is going to be a little bit nerdy. Let's talk about some numbers. And get your feedback. I want to start a discussion with the community on a potential set of changes that we're interested in doing. We've been thinking for a little while about capacitor and shield recharge rates. They're a little bit odd. The only way to really get a good value out of them is fit a ton of modules and rigs. You really need to just spam these things on, and you can get some kind of extreme cases. We've been seeing it a bit with the recharge Feeples, the very powerful tank you can get out of those. And it's a bit awkward that the individual modules are so weak, but together they can be really strong, and you need to have so many to be strong. So what we're considering doing, no promises yet, is buffing the base value of these modules by approximately 50%, so a really big buff to the actual modules themselves, by bringing in stacking penalties on these attributes. The goal there would be to make 4 or less modules of the same type, get more powerful, and 5 or more would get weaker. Around that range is what we're looking at right now. And the goal here is to create more interesting fitting options that would include smaller numbers of these recharge modules, the ability to get value out of just 1 or 2 of them, the ability to combine, say, recharge modules with your cat batteries and get some good value there. Provide some more opportunities to do creative fits. And so this is something we'd like to get the ball rolling on discussing with you guys. Again, no, I can't say when we would do this or even if for sure if we will do this. But wanted to start the community discussion going with it, because I know there's going to be a lot of people with opinions on this. And yes, we wanted to also prevent the most extreme case from getting out of control. And one of the reasons this ended up on our radar was looking at the shield recharge Feeples. Some of you guys may have run into those things. They can be very, very tanky. All right, so for this one, I need to give an extra special disclaimer.
All right. So let's talk. Let's just touch on this a little bit. It's just kind of a fun idea. I think it's a good idea. I think that shield passive recharge shield tank is kind of one of the redheaded stepchildren of Eve, and I think that I love my passive shield tank rattler, and whatnot. I think that hull tanking used to be basically a joke, and now has become sort of legitimate with only a few minor tweaks. And I think that was pretty successful. And to see that kind of thing happen to passive shield tanking would be pretty cool. Oh yeah, and going back to what I was saying earlier about alpha clones, there is the restriction that you can only have 1 alpha clone logged in at a time, which means alpha clones are all about teamwork, not about multi-boxing, which is important. Anything else about the capacitor? It gets brought up later that there's a problem with people ships that use only capacitor recharge rate, but he gives a really awesome response that we'll talk about when we get there. Besides that, I don't know. It's a kind of it's one of those, yeah. I think that could be probably pretty useful kind of changes. No, you're not allowed to have 1 Omega and 1 Alpha. If you have an Alpha logged in, you're not allowed to have any other things, clients accessing Eve at the same time. And that... What is in my room? Is that a bee? That could be a problem. The goons have shown up in my room, and this is a problem. Alright, so... damn it. Totally distracted. You're talking about shield. No, we're talking. Even if you have 2 different computers, that's still your account. You're only allowed to access 1 account, 1 alpha account at a time. Or if you're logged in as an alpha account, that needs to be your only access point at that time. So that is a big deal. But that still means that there are some uses for it. I know that some people in the militias are because there's only so many systems, they're just going to make an alpha clone for every single system, so that way they can log in at any given system at any given time. Hold on. I'm going to go check that B thing. I'm going to go put this on for a little bit and let you watch.
Because I know some people are going to get really excited about it. And I need your excitement to be moderated.
Oh, before I do, I want to talk a little bit about this before he goes into it. What he just explained, his disclaimer, is really, 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 really important. For the last 2 years, CCP Siegel has kind of had this chokehold on what is allowed to be talked about, because old CCP has had a big problem about sharing things that had no real path towards victory. And so kind of this long chain of things like ring mining and other kind of really pie-in-the-sky kind of ideas that always get thrown around at things like FanFest and Vegas. Well, not Vegas because it was just FanFest back then. But so there's been this big thing about drilling down to only the things that are actually going to be delivered, right? And so the fact that he is giving this serious of a disclaimer, it's because he's trying to really drive home the idea that this is something that is not promised. It's not even on the timetable. It's like this is in the beginning of an idea. Like this is still dream state, which is cool because the idea is really cool. And getting community support early on is important to a lot of these features. But at the same time, it's interesting, or it's good to see them starting to have that bravery to kind of let us even further in, instead of worrying about only what's deliverable within the next 6 months to a year. So yeah, gonna go check out the B now.
Your feedback on an idea that we think has a ton of potential, but it is not something we can promise at this time. It's not something we have a date for. It does not have a firm commitment. So think of this like the Chimera redesign from FanFest a couple years back. We're just putting out the, hey, look, there's this cool.
Two things. One, not a B, so totally good. Two, interesting throwaway comment there. He says, like the Chimera redesign. So this is a thing that not a lot of people have known about, because it's one of those things that if you're not part of like the active ongoing discussions on like Reddit or something like that, you haven't really keyed in on it necessarily. So a year or two ago, they showed a new Chimera. They showed a new Chimera model, and there was discussion about making. No, it was a year ago because it was at the same time that they were showing off facets, and the notion was that they were going to make all of the capitals scaled up to be about the same, to be proportional to the faxes, which means that cruiser or carriers were going to get much bigger. And as part of that, there was shown a Chimera redesign, and then Pointy Bits, I believe, posted a very interesting image of the different structure or of the different Caldari capitals allied together in their actual scale. And at that time, he also confirmed that this is not something that's going to happen, that they ran into some complications with bumping mechanics due to the extreme size, or having these huge ships all in large numbers. So it has been put on kind of indefinite hold as they're trying to fix those issues. And so him bringing that up helps kind of bring it into the limelight that, hey, you remember that Chimera thing that we talked about? It also is kind of not happening. Just a reminder of that little fact.
Thing we might do someday, but we can't promise it right now. Yeah, well, we'll see. But we're really excited about the concept, and we want to get the discussion going in the community, because we think this is another idea that is going to get a lot of value out of the community discussing it, because it actually involves you guys a ton. So you remember the fitting window from yesterday? We had a little bit of a there you go, bit of a walkthrough of that. The new fitting window with the ghost fitting, the fitting simulation. There's buttons for personal and corp save fittings right up there, and you can switch between the two and browse through all your save fittings. We think it would be great to add another button. And we don't have a final name for the feature, but right now I describe it as community fittings. Yes, except good fits. So the idea behind this would be a new set of save fittings available to all players that are created by the EVE community. So if you are a new player coming into the game, you don't know how to fit your ship, you can see fits in the client that are created by other players for you to get an idea of how to fit these ships. Curated by ISD and the CSM, and with the EVE community managers having the final say. So you can't try to convince players that this full smart bomb fit Imicus is a great combat ship. if we do this project, it would probably start with newbie accessible ships and alpha accessible ships like Tech 1 frigates, destroyers, and cruisers. So that would be our first focus if we go forward with it. So just a quick run through of how this would work in theory. Let's say you have a great Kestrel fit. You're just a random player who's got a really awesome Kestrel fit you're really excited about, and you think all the new players would really get value from learning about this Kestrel fit. So you contact either the ISD or the CSM, and they have the kind of ability to filter some of these ideas down, come up with some of the good ones, identify the ones that have real value, and they actually would be able to then author the fits right into the EVE client. Potentially just ISD, but there would be a tool to allow our volunteers to author these right into the client using the same kind of imports that you would use to get your own safe fittings in for personal or corp use. Which means that we don't need to do a patch update whenever we're changing these. They can be tweaked on the fly very easily. Of course, the community team would be watching over everything with a skeptical raised eyebrow, making sure that everything happens correctly. If there's ever a disagreement, if there's ever people get to loggerheads about what fits are going to be the best ones to put in, the final say would be with the EVE community team. So that would ensure that things don't get too out of control. So we want to get your feedback on whether you think this is a good idea, whether you think this is something that you would like to see implemented maybe differently, if you see any problems with it, and just whether it's something you think you're excited about. Would you guys participate in this? Would you guys put together fits? Would you encourage your friends who are maybe experienced theory crafters to do the same? And so we really want to hear that from both you guys here in the room and also everyone on the stream at home too.
All right, so let's do some feedback. First of all, super cool. Terrible name. They are not community fits. That I think, in my opinion, invokes the wrong reaction. I recommend the term recommended fits or public fits. So the reason why I say that is because it reminds me of MOBAs. MOBAs in particular had a problem with complexity in their item purchasing mechanics. In the early days of MOBAs, knowing what to buy was a huge barrier to entry for a lot of people. And so more advanced MOBAs like Smite added in the ability, or the thing where basically the way they did it was it pulled like everybody's purchases every single game and then brought to recommended the things that people bought. And so from this average, you could figure out what they have. In this case, it's a little bit different than that. But somebody brought up that it would be a lot like EVE Uni. And I think it would actually, that's probably a really good idea, where they're probably not going to show you the latest edge. They're not going to give you the meta. They're not going to do that kind of stuff. But if you need to know a Kestrel for level 1 missions, if you need to know a low skill point Kestrel for level 1 missions, if you need a high skill point Kestrel for level 1 missions, if you need an alpha thorax heavy tackle, if you need, these basic things, these kind of agreed upon fits. What might be interesting is fits if they allow holes to be made. So like you load it in and there's just like a hole there that basically says, hey, here's your mid slots, or here's your high slots, and then there's a utility high. You put whatever you want. Or, there's a mid slot free for whatever E-War fits your situation. I think that'd be pretty cool. It would actually increase the load on the ISD, but at the same time, they're trying to hire more, or not hire, but get more people into the ISD program. So they may have more manpower as well. I think that it's a cool system because it's one of those things that may require a lot of work, but once that work is done, maintaining it actually should be relatively easy. I mean, Corps do it all the time. In fact, they could even create a system in which people voted on them, pretty easily, and then from there you flesh out the ones that are all bullshit, and then you get a pretty good system. What's left? Gosh, I keep talking without talking to you guys. I keep talking without talking to the channel, and I apologize, guys. But have you guys been listening to the stream? Do you have any comments? I'm gonna guess not. All right. Yeah, it is an interesting idea with the fact that it puts more of a load on ISD, though. All right, keep going.
Yep. So the question from the audience was alliance fittings, maybe someday. I would love to do them, can't promise them though, unfortunately. The challenge with alliance fittings and alliance bookmarks is actually how we manage them, because we don't have alliance roles. So who gets, where we put the UI for it, who gets access to it, how the access control works, that's the big blocker there. So
that's an interesting thing to point out, because they are working, or they're supposed to be working on corp management tools and roles, and the Citadel system kind of rolls out a new kind of way of managing roles. So hopefully when that process is complete, that blocker will be removed for things like alliance bookmarks and alliance fittings. But it is also really good to know what the blocker is, and not just this mysterious, they don't want to do it or something. And I did it again. I keep doing it. I'm sorry. I need to set it up so that way when I mute one, I'm going to do push to talk for both of them next time, I think.
Yeah, I like the fact that he touches that they would love to have alliance type fittings, but it's just not capable right now with the current state of the game. But they are aware that a lot of people have asked for it.
I think it is capable. It's just the capabilities they have now are not really desired. Right now, there are some alliance level permissions that you have in alliance if you have certain roles in the executor corp. But one of the major complaints is that I actually, as an executor, I can't give other corps those roles for the alliance because they're tied to the executor corps. So while that possibly could be a solution for alliance fittings, it just puts load on executors. This, as well as the community idea, I like the idea of recruiting more people to do it. I don't like trying to gatekeep it on a few people, because then you have to worry about workload and whether or not they'll be overwhelmed with fitting requests.
Yeah, remember the ISD program is a volunteer program. So you can't hear me right now. God, give me 1 second. All right. Yeah, so remember the ISD is a volunteer program, so theoretically it can be scaled up as needed. And in fact, there are other ISD programs that have simply been not in functional. So, damn it. Hold on. Oh, okay, because it's not running in so many technical difficulties. Either way, stick with me. So, ISD is a volunteer program. They're even talking about expanding other things, like, for instance, ISD Mercury, which is part of the lore team, and ISD Aurora, which does, like, the events team, which would be really cool. So we'll see how that goes as they kind of ramp up into their new how to manage the sandbox style.
I'd love to see us solve that someday, but can't make any promises at this time. All right, guys. That's it for the presentation we have, but we've got time for questions. The idea here is that we've got CCP Manifest up here with a mic, and we'll be able to take your questions, so you can line up right in front of where he is. There you go. Hop in a line. We'll get through as many questions as we can and answer them to the best of our ability. You've got myself and CCP Larrick in here, and we've got, what here, like half an hour?
Yeah, about
Yeah,
that.
so we've got a good amount of time. We should be able to get through a lot of them.
One question per person, please.
Yes.
Sibilance. Oh, perfect. Okay. Test. Okay. My name's James, or whatever. And so on that last thing where you're talking about community fittings and ISD or whoever would approve them and they'd go up, that'd be useful and everything for new guys, as long as you also include a description of how the ship is meant to be used. Otherwise, they'll try to use ships for the wrong purposes.
Yeah, so that's a very, very good point, and it's something that thankfully we actually have all the tools in place to do right now. So you have the ability to author text in with the save fitting, and we would just ask whoever's submitting the fitting to put an explanation in at that time.
Important note, that was a statement, not a question.
I missed that question because I was actually distracted by ISD. I'm not even going to try to pronounce it right now, who pointed out that it would be a little bit challenging to ramp up ISD. But the other thing to remember is that depending on what level of success CCP sees in the next year, the entire company may scale up. If between Valkyrie doing well and post Ascension Eve doing well, CCP itself might just get bigger, which means some pretty significant growing pains. But we'll see. ISD I'm going to say, is 100% correct. One of the biggest struggles is that people don't even understand the ISD. And that's actually one of the things that I want to help change. I've talked to the ISD a few times about like going on the air and talking about it and trying to get them a higher profile. Because it is one of those things that's not really understood, like where their place is. And the other problem is that ISD is actually different groups of people all kind of under the same title. So it's not like you can grab one ISD guy and like ask them about what it's like to be on the ISD, because they can only answer their specific fragment. So you might be like pinning a guy to the wall and asking him about ISD, and he's just a channel moderator or a forum moderator, or he just writes lore stories, or whatever. Oh, CCP, or sorry, not CCP, ISD Mark, got it. Okay.
Battle Clinic had this feature where you have fittings, but it was more of a crowdsourced solution where people would either vote it up or vote it down. And instead of relying on a few people to weigh in on a fitting, the community itself would say this fitting's good or this fitting's not, and you could see the votes on it.
That's true. But the immediate fear is, of course, that Battle Clinic was notorious for recommending horrible fits because people would upvote troll fits. Now, Osmium doesn't have nearly that stigma and problem, and we may be culturally beyond that. But yeah, I think that's one of the reasons why as we move forward with this idea, that is actually a stigma that CCP is going to have to fight against, which is that previous incarnations, a la Battle Clinic, were known for giving less than optimal advice.
And actually, I don't mind that for like a Tengu or something higher end, because by the time you're flying an expensive ship, you should know the basics of fitting. But I think there's such an acceptance of this Alpha Clone program that for ships that really target Alpha Clone and new players, I don't think the communities would troll them out. The community seems supportive of Alpha Clones.
It's true. But the other thing that's important is, especially with the addition of ghost fitting, the ability to just share around fits and pull them apart and understand them and dissect them is going to increase dramatically.
I like the fact that CCP Fozzie also said that there's a field that the person submitting the fit has to give an explanation of the role of that particular fit for that ship.
Yeah, they go into that here in a bit, where it's about the being able to put in good explanations with it, which on the one hand is kind of important, but I think that the EVE community kind of gets the wrong idea about what kind of hand-holding is good to have. Like, I don't know necessarily if you should be told exactly how to fit this ship, but there should be maybe some points about the strengths and weaknesses and maybe a good application. But, obviously discovery and application yourself is probably very important as well.
And it's important because with the inclusion of injectors now, you can no longer afford to think like, by the time the person is flying this, they should know better, because there is no more by the time.
Also,
inject and be there sooner than they should.
Sorry, I got super excited because that was a super important point, and I apologize for attempting to interrupt you with that. Thank you. That is such a good point. And also, doesn't matter how much experience under their belt, your first Tengu is still your first Tengu. I've been playing this game for when I was playing this game 4 years, I bought a new Macarial. I didn't try to figure out how to fit a Macarial. I went to Osmium and started looking at Macarials. I went to EVE Uni and and found a material fit and then worked from there. So, you know, we're all noobs over and over and over again. So even if you understand the concept of fittings, and that's one of the reasons why I said that ghost fittings is going to go so far in helping us understand, is because it's going to let the process of like learning how the fits work and how the pieces fit together in a more visual in-game kind of way, that I think is going to make people more confident in their own builds, as opposed to you know, finding the good build from, say, Eve Uni. Additionally, remember now the API, you can just import fittings in. So theoretically speaking, you just have a tool that takes all of the Eve Uni fittings and just imports them into your corp. What this does is it makes it so that you don't have to use fitting slots for what are considered to be kind of generic fittings, if that makes sense. And then another guy whose name I'm not going to try to pronounce, I'm just going to call Eric because he said earlier that we could just call him Eric, points out that a lot of people are not going to learn to fly the ship by reading a description, but ultimately are going to have to get into a corp and be given a doctrine and then tweak it from there. So that's a good point, and you know, any promotion towards corporate structure is probably good. All right.
Hi, I'm Ace and CEO of Hard Knocks Inc. And my question is for whichever you guys wants to answer it. So we have these really cool new mining fleets that are going to end up in low sec, and they're going to be doing all sorts of cool stuff. What are we going to see in wormholes that's moderately similar or content-wise coming from that? Like, is SOE going to have some too?
Yeah, look, nothing with release, nothing with Ascension. Maybe in the future, but these are just going to be in nullsec, lowsec, and highsec. We have some crazy plans, but let's see if this works out first.
I ain't gonna lie, this question kind of bothered me, because in all reality, this mining fleet thing is stage 2, in which the drifter events that has been going on in wormhole space was phase 1. So, you know, it kind of feels like left foot, right foot. You know, it's K-Space's turn to get the new AI, but whatever. Aria, which again, another person whose name I'm probably mispronouncing, is asking if there are any cheat sheets about all the ISD departments. There actually is a website that lists them all. Hold on. There you have it. It's now posted, and it's the ISD volunteer program page, and it lists all the different kinds of ISDs and what they do. Although it's worth noting that some of those ISD departments are either like spun down or basically non-functional anymore. But yeah, and the sign up is there as well.
These NPCs don't know how to use the probe window and find anomalies yet. No, so they only go to static belt, so there isn't anywhere for them to go in wormholes at the moment, but in the future.
Yeah, never say never.
If it's a follow-up.
Oh, all right.
Are they able to jump gates, and are you going to see them jumping these stargates?
Oh, no. Not quite, but very soon.
I just realized I was muted for that. I keep messing this up. I promise I'll do better. What I was just saying is I will put the link in the show notes, and we will with the link for the ISD into the show notes, and that this question is super exciting, so I'm getting out of the way.
No one can hear you, buddy.
Are they going to trash talk in local?
Unironically, that is on our feature roadmap. Not with Ascension, but...
Hi, I'm a phone to decent. The Defender missiles, the stop bombs you said, do they also work with the bombs from citadels?
Yeah, I meant to clarify that in the presentation, and I totally forgot. Just all the good-looking faces down here kind of threw me. No, they don't. They don't touch the... Yeah, that would be, like, crazy powerful. So. That's good.
Hi, Robbie Casper from Karma Fleet. With regards to the weapons tier assign, is there any plans to look at the difference between the larger size, like medium guns, and the smaller size, larger guns, specifically like, for example, 250 millimeter railguns compared to their dual 250 millimeter railgun counterparts?
I think it would be interesting to bring those a little bit tighter together, potentially up the tracking of the smaller tier weapons for each size a little bit. We wouldn't be able to go all the way. I think that would just end up being a bit too strong. But it is something, that ratio of how we adjust range and damage and fittings and tracking is something we would look at with the tier side, with the goal of just making sure that there's a good niche for all these sizes.
Yeah, I'm Sir Lamb here with the Pandemic Horde. A lot of people have been talking about the increased jump ranges, and I was wondering if the formula for jump fatigue is going to change, or we're just going to end up with more fatigue when we're done.
It's not going to change, but you'll actually end up with less fatigue when you jump. So fatigue is very much based on the number of jumps that you take. So yeah, if you're taking a single 7 light year jump compared to a single 5 year light jump, sure, you're going to end up with more fatigue. If we were taking 3, like exponentially you have less. It's like something crazy, like a 70% decrease in jump fatigue over 3 jumps, like over that, what's 7 times 3? My maths is bad. 21 light years, right?
Yeah.
So yeah.
So for any given distance you're traveling, there'll be less fatigue.
Yeah.
With Pandemic Horde, we're excited about the alphas, and we give currently away hundreds of ships, frigates, and cruisers every day. The problem we have with ratio locking is that we don't have enough corporate hangar space for all the different races and everything else. Can we expand that limit at all?
It's a good question. That, I think, the question is basically tied to whether or not there's a performance issue with larger hangars. I know there is a, I know we wouldn't be able to get it vastly higher because of the item limits. So the total number of stacks per hangar is actually in there for a purpose. We've seen some problems when people get around it and they can like crash sissy. But it would be something that would definitely be worth looking at. So you're talking about the number of stacks limit in this case, right? Yeah.
You know, when you only have 1,000 ships or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We can only have like 20 of each ship, and we give them away within like 2 hours.
There's a big problem with...
just to repeat the question for anyone on the stream that didn't hear it. The question was, can we get containers for fitted ships?
Yeah, so look at something we'd love to look at, but there's like this big problem of recursion. So putting containers inside containers inside of containers inside of containers just becomes dumb and breaks all other things. So that's why those restrictions are there. It's not like we just want to be mean. It's just because of that. We'll see. Sorry, say again? Come and have a chat with me afterwards.
Yeah. Or stand in line, sir.
But yes, it was definitely something we'd love to be able to increase. The question is going to be the performance. But we'll talk to the engineers again when we get back to Iceland and see if there's anything they can magic up. For a while, we didn't think it would be possible to do asset searching in the client in structures, in new structures, citadels. But then PrismX thought about it a lot and came up with the solution. So maybe the engineers will magically do something. I think that's what they do, right? They're just basically magic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So first of all, yeah, he's right. Engineers are pretty much magic. But second of all, let's. Hey, what's up, man? Grash, thanks for the wave. There's obviously a lot of different questions to unpack there. most of them are fairly straightforward. The fatigue one is kind of the argument that has been championed around about this change in general. The one about the alpha skills and the skill lock. So Eric points out that if Pandemic Horde is having this problem, then they just tell them to be all of one type of faction tune. And I think that Pandemic Horde is trying to go with like exclusiveness. It's like, yeah, you can come and be from anybody. And I honestly don't think it's going to be that big of a problem for them, because they'll just find that, you know, having a profile of 4 isn't necessarily that bad. I don't know. I'm not in their mix, so I'm not going to dismiss their problems. I know that is specifically the reason why Aderon Robotics has focused on Galente alpha clones. I made the decision very early on that by focusing only on Galente alpha clones, I can ensure the good service for that group of people, as opposed to trying to create 4 different profiles, one for each race. It just naturally worked, since we are Galente faction warfare anyways, that made sense, and it fit with all of our doctrines. I don't think Horde is going to have that same fix, because, well, it's going to be, I don't know, it's going to be a bit complex for them. But I trust in them. They've got a few thousand people to fix the problem with. Did anybody else have anything that they wanted to throw out there for this? For the questions that have been asked so far? I know we just skipped over, or we just went over a few of them.
Well, I think the Pandemic Horde question more was about increasing the number of stacks or number of stacks that they can have in a particular hangar. But I think with limiting the alpha clones to one specific race, having the additional ships in a particular hangar, I don't think that's going to be that big of an issue at this particular point. But who's to say it might? I don't know. We're still 2 weeks away from Ascension, so I think they were more concerned about hangar space.
Well, the question for fitted ships and containers is very telling, because that way they could have like a Caldari Alpha container and a Galente Alpha container and a Mimitar Alpha container with the fitted ships already inside. They can't do that, and that's kind of unfortunate.
What I don't understand.
Yes.
Last I knew, factions don't determine M3.
No. So the notion is that they're going to have to, basically it quadruples the number of fits that they have to have available at any given time, and they're going to hit stack limit, which is kind of a problem, I guess. The other thing that
I'm sorry,
a creative solution would be,
but M3 is M3 is M3. It doesn't matter what faction it is. So I don't see how alpha clones would determine it.
This is not an issue of M3. It's the fact that you can only have so many unique items in any given block. So a creative solution would be to create 4 Astrohuses, one for each race, and store their stuff there. But we'll have to see what happens. Players are pretty good at creating solutions, and then CCP comes along and helps out where they can.
Hi, I'm Asgard from CO2, and 2 quick questions about the NPCs. Will they change depending on what you warp in? So if I come in with 1 battleship, a whole bunch of scram all their mining ships, will they actually bring in bigger ships, or will it still be like the same kind of like, maybe like, I don't know, will come in the 4 frigates and whatnot?
With release, it's pretty varied. You've got a chance of getting like a whole bunch of battleships dropped on you or a whole bunch of frigates, but our plan is to actually have them respond. Of course, that's also open to abuse. I can't say that. So basically, not abuse, but that's open to gaming is a better way of saying it. Like exactly what we see with escalations in wormhole space. This was like hey, don't bring capitals, and so you guys were like, let's bring capitals, get more guys, right? So we need to work out a system that works for having interesting, engaging gameplay without being, I should just bring more things, or come in with a frigate and then bring in more other ships so I get a small spawn. But that's something we're definitely looking at.
So that is one of the better questions and answers from this entire panel, by the way. That does answer the question of how these escalations are going to work. So basically, again, at this point, the mining barges are going to act like flashpoints, which actually, since you don't know what the responding fleet is going to be, it's kind of going to be like bait in normal PvP, right? So you see a skiff in a belt, you're pretty sure in like low sec, you're pretty sure it's probably bait, but you're not sure what's on the other side of that bait, and so you bite it to find out. And in that same sort of sense, I think, these mining ships are going to function kind of the same way. So it's not one of those things where you try to, come in with the right number of people to trigger the correct response. I also think it's very valuable for them to admit that the original design function of capital escalations in wormhole space was actually to deter the use of capital ships, and eventually it became the reason to use capital ships. And that's Windows trying to be super helpful and instead being super annoying. There's a question of how many people are in Aderon. Right now I think we have just over 100 pilots, but I just did one purge, and I'm going to do a second purge of inactive pilots at the end of the month. So I expect it to go down, but I would say we have probably about 30 to 50 active pilots right now. We pull somewhere between 10 to 20 in our fleets, but we are kind of growing our core so that way when alphas show up, we then will, just like Eve, right? So Eve right now is functioning on stocking up its infrastructure and just letting the alpha clones solve the problem of numbers. That's what we're doing. We're making sure that the infrastructure is good enough so that when the alpha clones pour in, they will supply the numbers. Yeah, 120, but that is probably misleading. Did I develop Aura? No, the former CEO of Aderon Robotics, Marcel Devereaux, developed Aura. I am working on some new Node.js tools using the API, but I did not develop Aura. Uh-oh, my son's here, and he's naked. This is about to get really awkward.
I'm sorry! He just got out of the bath.
My son just got out of the bath. All right. That was fun. Something tells me I'm going to have to at least do some editing before I post this on YouTube. So there we go. Any other questions? All right. Anybody? Does the panel have anything to say about this yet?
Let's see, naked son. What do I do?
Oh man! Thankfully, my wife came in and took care of it. Yeah, he wasn't on camera. That's good. All right, moving right along.
And also, just quick follow-up. What kind of rates are we going to see for spawning? Will it be more in high sec, more in low sec? What's going to be the kind of spawn rate?
It's less about actual spawn rates or even sec. It's much more about what they're around. So if you want to go and see these, you should go to where their stations are. Look up like a mine drill station and go hang around there. You're going to see more there. Same if you want to see the blood raider ones. Go to where their blood raider stations are. That's where you're much more likely to see. We have long-term future plans to have them reacting to
I love that, by the way. I love the fact that
scale,
their locations in space
I'm not
matter.
going to even talk about that, otherwise you guys will have all sorts of expectations that aren't realistic. This winter, right?
How's it going? I'm Bosun. I just have a question about the auto-targeting missiles. Is there going to be any kind of direct counterplay to them? Do they have a missile flight time? Do they have HP or anything like that?
I mean, they have HP, so you could smart bomb them. You could just any other way you could counter destroyers. So destroyers aren't super
I do like what Larrikin said right there. It's like they're not even going to speculate on down the road because player expectations will be way too high.
out their missile volley. So because they select a random.
Crap! I muted myself again. I said that was that's good, but it's foreshadowing. He talks about it more in just a couple minutes. He actually breaks his own rules. He just wants to establish the fact that this is super speculative, high vision kind of stuff. But it is something that we circle back onto here in a few minutes.
A random bomb out of all the bombs out there. If you come in and launch 2 or 3 bombs, or like do a bigger wave, you can get past them. There's a bunch of ways of counter game playing this.
Cool. Yeah, one of the ones I'm really looking forward to actually is people coming in with like a single bomber, dropping that, getting them all to like panic activate their defenders, and then all the defenders kill that one bomb, and then they are all on reload for when your other 7 land.
Yeah.
Hey, Lord Servant. I got a question about, like, you're talking about the capacitor and shield region mods. What's the upper end you want to put that on? Because, like, shield Darkons, now defunct, you know, capital travel fits, now defunct. They relied on stacking up large amounts of those and probably going far beyond what you'd want.
This is the best answer.
How do you anticipate these changes affecting the, you know, ability to do stuff like that?
So the fits that use a very large number of modules, if we went forward to this change, yeah, they would definitely get a weaker cap recharge or weaker shield recharge. But then you get more options for mix and matching. The very specific fits, like the just pure cap recharge, would get weaker under this. I would expect that if we went forward to this, people would figure out a new best fit and be moving to that within like a week or something like that.
So what he just said there is super important, and is a message that needs to be repeated as often as it can be to the community, which is that CCP Fozzie is saying that a nerf to everyone is not necessarily bad, that it can improve the design space, and he is confident in players' ability to compensate at the removal or the nerfing of a niche advantage, right? So the question was, what do you say about people who are getting nerfed in like travel fit Archons? And the answer is, we think that you can continue to do that just fine without having this nerf and or without having this advantage or this power level, I should say. And with everybody receiving it, you will simply find a new best, which is an important thing to remember.
Now, with that, if they do decide to go down that route, what do you think of possibly, say, you've got different levels for the shield extenders or shield boosters. You got capital, large, medium, small. The same being applied to, say, cap rechargers or of course we already have the cap batteries, but like for the cap rechargers, the shield rechargers, having 4 different levels of the particular types of modules.
I think that that's something that almost certainly will be looked at because, well, it's interesting. I mean, I'm sure it's on the table, at least as an option.
Agile Sandidar from Explicit Alliance. Without revealing my personal preference, going back to engineering complexes, on a scale of 0 to 10, how likely, Fozzie, are we going to expect to see building supers outside those engineering complexes?
Sorry, the question was how likely
is it that we're actually, because I saw a forum post from you this week regarding showing like a Titan being built or whatever. How likely are we to see that?
Oh, the appearance outside.
Yeah.
I don't feel comfortable giving it that kind of rating. It's something that we've looked at. The art team has kind of on their list of things they'd be interested in doing. It's like up there with some of the other things like putting Alliance logos on them, which is I think a higher priority. So this falls below that. And there's a bit more work that would have to be done from the development side from Team 5.0 to support it as well. And at the moment we're just focused on getting the basic functionality polished. So I can't say for sure, but I think there's a decent chance that we'd be able to get in at some point.
How likely is it that we'll see on when we destroy these things actual what was in it and kill metals and what we blew up?
So you will not see the stuff that went to asset safety under the current plan, but you will see, so any job that's active will actually have a chance of dropping the loot, and you'd see all the stuff in the kill mill. In fact, that's actually working on the test server right now. Any job that's active, you see all the materials, including like the BPCs and stuff like that, in the kill mill for it.
Baby Titan or something?
Yes, unless they cancel the job ahead of time, which we're actually considering doing a block on canceling jobs at a certain point. But that won't be in the first release.
So I think that's a good one to unpack too. So here's an interesting question. I also think it's fun that they waited for this to be in the Q&A. I'm sure that they knew that this was one of the questions that were going to be coming up. That's why they had a super prepared answer. You saw that he dialed in and went and answered it exactly. Kind of, the more he went into it, the more he fell into what he knew he was going to say. But what's interesting is that, you know, he can't talk about it too much because the blockers are obviously outside of his control. He mentions what teams are kind of responsible for the blockers, which is fine. I mean, that's not an accusation or anything. That's just how it works. It's also worth noting that he pointed out that Alliance logos on structures are coming and a higher priority than this. And then casually, kind of the second question reassures us that even though we won't see what Titan is being built ahead of time, the notion that somebody can lie after the fact and say that there wasn't anything there is actively being pursued, and you know, the what builds are in progress thing is going to go a long ways in helping out. If you cancel the build, last time I checked, that just throws away all the minerals, so that'd be kind of funny. You know, that'd be a big sweaty thing. Like, you know, do I cancel the build just to make sure that they never know that I was building it, or do I actually try to defend this damn thing? It's going to be an interesting puzzle. I'd like to see it if it got blocked at the first timer to really make that, or not the first timer, but the first reinforce, so the 24 hours after the first time it gets hit. So then the notion of, you know, that first day, well, am I confident in my ability to fight this, or should I just abandon, just fucking scorch the laptops and burn the evidence? It could go either way.
Yeah, I love the aspect that they said with the new system that you will see what was in build, because like I said, right now we've shot so many POSs and killed so many capital assembly arrays, but we don't know exactly what was in it unless the spy network was able to find out exactly. Now with the new system, we will know exactly if we hit the right target.
Actually, we were talking about this earlier, Fishbone, remember? In the chat. And
yeah, we were.
I was saying, I think it would be cool if you could absolutely always see what's there. That way someone has to put a cloaky ship and see and look what's being built. And on the new CSAAs, if you could have a module that like emits a sonic pulse that decloaks everything within 1,000 kms, that would be pretty neat.
So I think that there's a couple of things that I want to say about this. One is I think that it's an interesting issue, like the fact that they actually revealed the thing like being built, and then they're saying that the art team is the reason why it's not working necessarily. You could put on some tinfoil and suggest that the player base is very much kind of in opposition about whether or not this can see the Titan in build thing is good or not, which is kind of like, you know, if you're part of one of the major organizations, in particular like the Imperium, you probably don't want your Titans to be seen as they're being built. If you're part of another organization like, say, PL, you really want the Titans to be visible. I actually was suggesting earlier that there would be a cool gameplay where you could see the Titan being built, but the place in which the Titans are being built are shielded and requires actually manually flying up in there past, you know, in a place where it would decloak you in order to get close enough. But you have to physically get in there to get your camera, or you have to like work your camera to see into it in order to find out where it is. So it's not just like a warp to it, look, warp away kind of aspect, but there's kind of a little bit of a deeper investigation as part of the process of finding out whether or not there's a Titan being incubated. But then again, I think at that point, the abortion references would probably only become more. All right. But either way, I think it was a solid answer, and I think that it's a solid solution to the problem, because the people that want to know that it was a build get to know in the kill mail, and the people that want to use OPSEC as a way of protecting extremely expensive builds get what they want. And so it may be possible that there is a technical limitation, but there's also a lack of will to fix that technical limitation, because they don't want to go through the effort of fixing those problems and then have people hate it and not implement it anyways. Does that make sense? So let it kind of play out how it is, and then see whether or not there still actually is a demand for that visual.
Yeah, like I said, I like the aspect of not being able to see if it's something's being built in the industrial complex, but I like the confirmation on the kill mail.
Indeed. All right, proceeding.
Hello. Hello. So we've seen this, we saw the glimmer of this with the Circadian Seekers and the Drifters, and I think the vision that you've got for the NPC AI is spot on. I think you're on the right track. It needs to be just like players, introduce people to the game. But I've got some further questions here. First of all, is it safe to assume that if I have high standings with Serpentis or Sancha, that they will not attack me?
Yeah, that's right.
Okay, and then...
So wait, so I do need to clarify that.
Sure.
So actually it's going to be possible for this weird situation where you could be mining in a belt with like Sancha mining operation, and then Sancha belt rats spawn and attack you, but the miners don't?
Right, because they're belt rats, exactly. So, and that's the second part is, are we going to see changes to belt rats so that finally belt rats will behave in a way according to my standing? And furthermore, how do you feel about adding functionality so that those of us who have high standings with a pirate faction could actually come to their aid in the belt, kill the players, gain loyalty point rewards from the pirate faction?
So, I totally shouldn't say this. Yeah, that's kind of our plan. So long term, what we want to do is even have them to the point, if you've got really positive standings to Sancha rats, and you're in a belt with Sancha rats, and someone comes and attacks you, they will rep you. Like, that's what we're kind of aiming for.
Not in the first release.
Not on the first release, maybe not on the second or the third, but like that's the trajectory we're going.
Early December then?
So, oh boy, that's the big one in my opinion. That's the confirmation of a lot of what I've been saying about the Eve API or AI and how these things are going to be. So if you go back to my old crystal ball things about standings, actually, I talk about this a lot. And this is really important. This shows that their objective for PvE is that the universe itself should be largely indistinguishable from players, right? So if you're working with Sancha, they work with you. They call you in to help. They'll rep you. If you're friendly with, and this is one of the interesting things about these mining vessels, that means, is that if you become friendly with Dulcia, you actually will and you mine in their area, you can mine in their fleets, or, you know, with their fleets, and then when enemies come to gank you, if they're also bad with Dulcia, the Dulcia Corporation will defend you too. That's pretty cool. And so what you're working towards is this world in which NPC-controlled players and player-controlled players kind of behave in a similar way, in the fact that they all kind of are live actors. But obviously player-controlled people are able to do whatever the hell they want, whereas NPCs generally follow the objectives of their organization.
Yeah, I love the fact that they said that is on the timeline. That because, like I said, I know right now it's like I've been killing tons of Blood Raiders, so I know they don't like me. But if I go out and decide, hey, I want to be friendly with you guys, well, I'm going to have to work my butt off to get all my negative standings back up to positive with Blood Raiders. But I know in the immediate, that's not going to happen. Blood Raiders are going to hate me no matter what.
I like that this also changes the PvP meta. Living up in the north, one of the most frequent thing that would happen when you gauge someone at the gate, the Garistas rats would warp in, and Garistas ECM jam. And it's the worst feeling in the world when you have someone caught and a rat jams you out. But now if you have positive standing to the Garistas, they won't jam you and potentially will help jam your target.
Right, and they did say that that is not going to be part of it. They do in just a few minutes say that that isn't going to be part of it, like right now. But basically, in much the same way that you know, citadels are to posses, or the new command bursts are to old command boost system, what you're seeing here is kind of an incremental replacement of what we currently have. So they're working in tandem right now, but eventually, as much as possible, all of the AI is going to be ported over to this kind of system. So, you know, sanctums will be run by combat-oriented AI like this. You know, there'll be patrols, there'll be, you know, potentially hauling system services, and all these kinds of things. And so, you know, it's just going to be basically player generated, the borders between player versus player and player versus environment are going to get thinner and thinner and thinner.
Now, do you see the current PvE status like going out and killing the rats and havens and sanctums? Do you see that aspect changing to this new system, or are we still going to be, or if I want to go out and rat up some ISK, am I still going to be able to just go out to a haven and have a set of waves that I know are going to spawn, and I can just kill them, collect the ISK?
That's an interesting question. And I'm going to say that I think it's going to be that way for a very long time. Because having these well-structured, understood ways of grinding up ISK is at least currently very important to the game as a whole. So in order for them to change that entirely, they're probably going to very slowly transition them in, or potentially even just using the AI to augment what is currently going on. So like have sanctums be roughly the way that they are now, but with AI that's a little bit more interesting, or some of these aspects factored into it. It's difficult to say at this point how deep down that rabbit hole they're going to go and how fast they transition it over. One of the things that I've suggested is that keep level 4 missions the way they are, and potentially introduce or rework level 5 missions because they're less used, bring them maybe to high sec or whatever, and put more of these concepts in. Although it looks like we're getting more and more away from the idea of missions and more of just things to do. So I think that what you're going to see is more and more of these opportunities put in until such a point in which sanctum ratting becomes no longer a major pastime, and then potentially see it get phased out.
Imagine a day where NPCs are lighting sinos.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, well, the crystal ball example that I gave was that, you know, actually, before I explain this, one thing to point out is that the new standings is not the same as the old standings. So your standings with these new rats are not the same as your corporation standings with those various empires, and I don't think it changes just by their interactions, although I'm not 100% sure. So what I think that they're doing is, again, they're also now just reworking the standing system into this new system with the diamonds and the 5 different levels and all that kind of stuff, which makes a lot of sense. So in the crystal ball example that I gave in standings, I said that the example I gave was that somebody who is neg 10 to the Blood Raiders goes and warps to a sanctum and starts shooting Blood Raiders. Now, as a neg 10, you're not only hostile to the Blood Raiders, but you are like public enemy number 1. And so they actually send out a broadcast. And then there's another dude who's positive 8 because he's been working with the Blood Raiders for a while. And incidentally, the way to get standings with the Blood Raiders is to bring in corpses of players and turn them into the Blood Raiders to make them friendly and happy with you because they want corpses. So this guy has been, hunting the Blood Raider, or hunting people who hunt Blood Raiders and bringing their corpses to Omer for quite some time, and so he's well liked by the group, and so he receives a distress signal that basically says what the system is, what the signature is for the anomaly, and the fact that it is a paladin. And then that person can opt to go and help support his allied forces, the NPCs, to stop the attacking players. And after hearing this description, I think that is remarkably close to what we might actually be seeing within a few years.
Summer.
Serpentis
November
Master
16th.
Race. Shout going out to Corelli.
But just to answer the quick question about asteroid NPCs, we're kind of moving in that direction. We just want to take it slow, get lots of feedback on this, see how this plays out, and just.
Also, I want to note that the reason why they're being so cautious about this, first of all, it's a big deal, and second of all, they were breakneck plowing into the AI with the drifters, and then they hit some very significant bugs with their AI, which basically delayed the rollout by nearly a year. So these baby steps are very, very important from a technical aspect.
Yeah, slowly expand this.
There's a lot of NPCs in our video game.
There's a lot.
So moving all of them over to the new AI is going to take a while.
So I just have a question about faction warfare. Do you guys have any kinds of plans in the future of modifying it to where, for example, right now there's a big issue with AWOXing, where you have some corps have guys that have a positive 10 standing, which are just alts, and then everyone else is just AWOXing everybody. Is there any plans to, even make it even more exciting than just sitting in a plex?
So I guess there's kind of 2 separate questions there. There's the AWOXing question, and we don't have something on the roadmap right now. We'd love to hear ideas for how you'd like to see that get solved from the community. It's obviously a challenge trying to figure out how to handle the management of membership of a group that doesn't have a player in charge of it. Humans are much smarter about this kind of thing most of the time than an NPC will ever be able to be. Coming up with rules that aren't exploitable is a big challenge, and if there's ideas that you guys have from your experience on the ground, we definitely want to hear them. And then the second one is just adding some extra excitement to it. Again, we definitely like to do some more work there. I think there's some cool opportunities in the future for tying in a revamp of FW in with some of the NPE work that's being done, because the NPE storyline at the moment is very much focused on the empires, and I think there's some cool opportunities to revamp factional warfare and kind of make it a more exciting place for new players to go into. I think it is already a pretty great place for new players to go into, but there's a lot of improvement that we can make there. So I would love to see us do some more work there, and I think there's some synergies that we can hopefully find in the future.
Thank you.
Hi, Deep Spar Gradient. As one of the approximately 25 people who lives in Great Wildlands,
So, faction warfare. Obviously, a big love of mine. I'm of the firm belief that as soon as the Alphas clones come in, then they'll reassess faction warfare and make a pretty big pivot towards that at the first or second quarter of next year. So, I'm not too worried about faction warfare. I think there are some really cool ideas. Not getting into that right now. That would be a whole episode.
Well, I do have a question. They were talking about AWOCs and of course, I know nothing about faction warfare.
Oh, yeah.
Is there a problem, say, you're part of the Galante Federation and you're doing faction warfare for them? Is there another group of Galante Federation people that come in and actually kill you so they can do the site that you're in?
No. Well, that's not generally why AWOCsing occurs. AWOCsing is just literal dickery. So you get two different kinds of AWOCsing. One is within your faction. So Galante militia guys will just roam around and shoot other Galante militia guys. And what you'll find is that a lot of times what those are is Caldari militia guys that create Galante militia alts just to roam around and pop people that don't realize it. Because militiamen generally set up overviews that make it so that purples show up as friendly. So it's not like something that's always a problem. You know, I work with purples all the time. And by purples, I mean not people that are in my fleet, but people that are in my militia, but just like I'm in a plex with. But there is a strong tension to that. The bigger problem I have personally found is that your allied militia, so like the Mimitar militia, will come into the Galante militia war ground and just start popping people. And I don't know if that's because they have less of a standings problem or whatever, but like this idea of like trying to use the system to abuse people in order to try to bait out like loss of standings on people that care about standings, or just sacrificing alt characters to gank it's just like suicide ganking, right? So suicide ganking, you pay standings to get a kill off. Well, in this case, you pay your faction standings instead of your security standings. There's a question of why do I love faction warfare? I love faction warfare for a couple of reasons. One, it's the only place in the game in which almost completely new players and vets can operate on a level where like each of them shine. And I know that nullsec does that too, but the thing is that most of like faction warfare is anywhere, you know, you've got everything from solo and dual PvP that's really solid all the way up to 10-man fleets to 30-man fleets to 80-man or 150-man giant clashes. Now, those aren't as big as some of the nullsec ones, but you get all those different things. And I think that a lot of it has to do with the plex mechanics. So because we're fighting over specific plexes, you can actually control what size of a fight you get. And by that, I mean ship class. So you can say, okay, you're going to fight, you know, you might be able to beat me on a cruiser level, but I think that we can beat you on a frigate level. And so there's a lot of good cat and mouse play, which I think is very, very interesting. Compare what faction warfare people are saying about the current Ivonin siege, as opposed to, say, Goonswarm's last attempt to occupy a very, or not even Goonswarm, but any given nullsec block's attempt to occupy an area. What you'll hear is a bunch of nullsecers trying to just make things miserable for each other. And what you'll see in Galante faction or in faction warfare is I got 67 kills in like 2 hours because it was just non-stop fighting, just fleet after fleet after fleet smashing into each other, or like, you know, just reship, get in there, you know, because every plex is a battle when it comes to these kinds of sieges. Now, it's not all the time like that, but the ability to just be like, you know what, it's Tuesday, I want to find content in faction warfare space is really good. And the other advantage is with Galante faction warfare is that you basically get to pay to PvP. So in most PvE, you or sorry, paid to PvP. In most PvE, you have to use a special ship that makes you pretty much incapable of fighting. In Faction Warfare, they don't ask you to do that. They say, hey, go out in a PvP ship and go make money. And while the initial task is relatively boring of just sitting in a Plex, what you're basically saying is go be there for 20 minutes and, you know, fight people off if you want, and, you know, be content and we'll pay you money. So I think that Gallente Faction Warfare, or sorry, not Gallente Faction Warfare, but Faction Warfare in general have a lot of the great mechanics that really make content, fun, engaging content very easy, and the requirement of non-combat fiddly bits that are required to enable the combat is much lower in Faction Warfare than in other conflict-driven areas of space. How's that for an answer? Yeah,
just to jump in on that, it's a different type of fight. I mean, being in a nullsec entity, the fights in nullsec are characterized very differently than, say, in Faction Warfare. And in fact, a lot of Empyrean folks that lived in the North had alts in Faction Warfare space, specifically to get those fights, those 1v1 frigate fights that you get in those gated plexes.
So I have one question about Faction Warfare. Is, you know, your standings go down to 2 empires, and how big of a pain in the ass is that? Is that something you regret, or is it worth it to, you know, get all the good fights all the time?
That's a good question. I'll answer it by saying that I've been in Faction Warfare for like 3 years, and I'm pretty sure that if I left Faction Warfare, I would actually be allowed in a more high sec. I think that gets overplayed. Now, if you do Faction Warfare missions, you tank your standings way faster. But just fighting other people, you don't actually lose standings very quickly. And just doing plexing, you should actually be able to keep your standings pretty well too. The honest to God truth is that there's consequences to actions, and you know, as soon as if you're going to be a pirate, you need to have a high sec hauling alt. If you're going to be in Faction Warfare, if you're going to be in Gallente Faction Warfare, then you need to have a Jita alt, and that's just the nature of things. But you adapt to that, and you're fine. And like in our case, we provide full scale to the door logistics. So you just buy something in Jita, you contract it to our internal logistics system, and usually within a day, it's just in the station ready to go for you. So you don't necessarily feel locked out in the same classic way. The fact that Ashtarothi would probably never... I would have to work significantly hard to get Ashtarothi to be probably allowed in Caldari space again, but it's A, not that bad, and B, I don't... Like, again, I'm not bound to just Ashtarothi. I have Invictus for all of the other stuff.
See, this is one thing where I love about the Alpha clones, because I know nothing about Faction Warfare. It's one of the aspects of the game that I have not really explored. And I'm looking forward to starting a brand new character, jumping in with you, Ashtarothi, and experiencing Faction Warfare from the beginning with a brand new character. And it's going to force me to relearn everything that I've accumulated over 13 years of playing Eve. And I mean, I'm more focused on battleships and capitals, carriers, dreads, but I've forgotten what it's like to fly a frigate, fly a cruiser, and I'm looking forward to relearning all that stuff.
Yeah, and the cool thing is that with Faction Warfare, what's interesting is that if you want to just fly frigates all day, totally 1000% valid. Not just valid, but welcome. And also, if you want to fly carriers and dreads, you will pretty much have an opportunity to do that at least once every couple of weeks, because there's enough big operation stuff that's happening on a militia-wide level that needs those kinds of things. And like even Aderon Robotics, one of the things that we're working on is, I mean, we have we have a small capital fleet. We haven't actually deployed it for anything yet, but it does exist. And as we move forward, we will be potentially applying some of that in strategic ways. So yeah, I mean, like it's really got everything. But I'm going to put a pin on this. We can talk about it more later. There is one announcement that I want to make, which is that one of the things I've planned on doing now, I've been trying to lock in what I'm going to do when the expansion hits. And so I know I'm going to make 4 alpha clones, 1 for each race. But I've decided that I'm going to give each alpha clone a different role and stream different alpha clones on different nights, 1 for each role. So what I've settled on so far is that my Galente alpha clone is going to be a line member of Aderon Robotics. I'm going to do I'm going to experience from the inside what I expect from my new players, so that way I can speak from experience and know what I'm talking about when I yell at them that they're not getting enough DPS out of their ships or whatever. And then my Caldari character is likely going to be my Signal Cartel alt, so my Alpha Signal Explorer, and see how that works. I haven't figured out what my other 2 characters, my Amar or my Mimitar character, are going to be yet. Hard to say. Maybe my Amar guy, I don't know. We'll see. But either way, we need to wrap this up. I told my wife that we would be done no later than 13 minutes ago, and right. So here we go.
Occasionally, is there anything to be done? Thuckers own it, so we've always had Great Wildlands has always been in this weird NPC 0-0, but not NPC 0-0 space. Doesn't get the bonuses that Curse does or Stain or whatever. So is there anything on the new NPCs that do mining for Thuckers in Great Wildlands?
You'll actually see Thucker Mix, I'm not sure if you saw, was one of the corporations. Yeah, you'll see a bunch of them out there. Okay. We'll see.
Yeah, there's a lot of cool stuff I think we'd like to do there. Great Wildlands being unique provides us cool opportunities for the future. Obviously, it makes it the odd man out in that whenever we change other systems that might affect the rest of the universe, Great Wildlands often is kind of left out from that because it's so different. But I would love to see some more work there. There's an ongoing dream that myself and CCP Delegate Zero have kind of been chatting about every once in a while, of having the ability to actually visit the great convoy fleets of the Thuckers, and these fleets that are themselves like giant, essentially stations, and that you can kind of move around. And that would be really cool. I can't promise when we'd be able to do that, but I have that amazing dream, and I think it would be really awesome.
All right, thank you.
Hello, continue with Pandemic Legion, and my question is about the Defender missiles in regards to, let's say, for example, you have X bombers coming in, they launch their bombs. Let's say, for example, you have X or even X+2 or something like that, destroyers, right? So you have these bombs coming in, they're generally going to be launched at about the same time, coming in at the same time. You say that it's random, the Defender missiles are random, but when you launch, let's say, for example, 7 Defender missiles against 7 bombs, are they really random? Are you going to require multiple missiles to destroy one bomb? And if it is just a 1-to-1, are you going to have all of the missiles just stupidly going to the same bomb because the math is difficult to do otherwise? Because it would be very difficult to say, when everyone launches a missile, to say, go to unique bombs, So have you play tested that and figured if you do have scenarios quite often where 7 missiles only take out 2 or 3 bombs?
Yeah, that is totally possible. This is completely random. So you could have 200 destroyers there, and they launch 2 bombs, and everyone hits it at the same time, and they all go after the single bomb. That is technically possible. The laws of probability say that's never going to happen, although now that I've said that, it's obviously going to happen.
But it will be pretty common that if someone launches 10 bombs and you have 10 destroyers, you're not going to destroy all of them. It would be incredibly rare that would destroy all of them if you hit them all at the same time. That being said, there's ways to optimize it if you're clever. Because they go after a bomb that they can see within their range. But if you stagger the firing of them, some of the bombs might be dead, and then you can actually kind of increase your chances.
Yeah, these things are super fast too, right? So there's a 12.5 or 12-second launch time. you can totally knock some bombs out, launch a second wave of these, but you're just gonna have to be quick and like organized.
A really good defender missile wing is going to be a lot more powerful than a bunch of people spamming it.
Will these be usable on T2, like for example, Dictors, and also if a bomb is destroyed and a missile is already heading towards it, will the missile redirect to another bomb?
It is going to be usable on Dictors, all destroyers, including Tech 2. Let's be honest, so Dictors never live long enough to be useful. Yeah, if they go after a bomb that gets destroyed, then they just go away.
Yeah, it'll be like a missile going after a ship that's destroyed, right? It just kind of flies off into nothingness and gets bored.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks, sir.
I am Trelithra from Explicit Alliance. I was just wanted to ask a question about the new NPC mining fleets and whether they would actually be in the drone lands, considering it'd be kind of weird to see drones using warships.
Yeah, so it's on our roadmap to look at this, but that was kind of the thing, right? It's kind of weird to have drones using ore ships, although we may do that. They use infested Dominixes. For Ascension, there is not going to be drone mining operations, but some of the Empire ones will actually spill out into the drone regions based on where their stations are. But we have plans for something in drone regions. It's just going to take a little bit longer to get to. Just on that, I have dreams of swarms of these drones just basically mining your shit, mining.
So I'm gonna just call it now. Oops. Hey. I'm just gonna call it now. The drones, the Rogues drones have some really interesting lore to them. They were kind of the first ominous threat before the Drifters and the Sleepers. So once they get the AI to be a bit more malicious than mining fleets, that's when you're going to start seeing some cool stuff out of the rogue drones.
In your ships, but they're just dreams.
And we've got the crazy tentacle mining drones now, so we can potentially use some of those, yeah.
Those are weird dreams, man.
Don't judge me.
Hi, Temujin with Pandemic Horde. With the significant increases in your technology over the last 5 years, is there any thought to bring mines back into the game and maybe restrict them to mine layers and those types of things?
No, they're not fun. They're hilarious, but they're kind of not fun.
So yeah, there's two problems with them. There is the performance issue, and that performance issue actually doesn't go away. Yes, the servers can handle it better than they could way back then, but also there's more players playing than way back then, and more people focus into one place because organizations are getting larger and they're getting more.
I missed that question. Was it landmines?
Yes, mines.
Yes. Okay, cool. Yeah, I actually have some landmines that I bought, or no, somebody got it to me for a Secret Santa. But yeah, I think that could be something that could be cool, but obviously with that reaction, probably not.
I used to exploit them, so it was so hilarious. I'd lay a bunch of mines, be 4 or 5 systems away, and then get a notification that someone ran into them.
Organized to get more people into one fight. So actually, the performance concern is still an issue. But then, yeah, also they're just not the greatest gameplay. It's not necessarily something that is enjoyable to have to run into. We want to try to make sure as much as possible that weapons are fun for both sides to a certain extent, that at least there's the counterplay feels fun, and with mines, that's not really the case.
Thank you.
Hello, the Wookiee Dark Taboo. So as passes go into the distant past, do you see fuel production changing significantly? And B, could CCB buy my POS junk back?
Sorry, so the first part of the question, what was it? It was...
Okay, so fuel blocks aren't as, let's see, it takes less to run an Astra Goose than it would a POS, a regular tower. So will you see a significant change in how much fuel is needed throughout New Eden?
I do expect we will see some. You do need fuel to run the service modules, so we see that, for instance, with the engineering complexes, you need any engineering service modules that can be fit on Citadels as well. You get the fuel usage on those. We actually dropped the fuel usage quite a bit from the initial plan because it was a little bit too high, but it still is pretty noticeable. There is still quite a decent amount of fuel being used. It's something that is definitely a concern, though. We need to keep an eye on making sure there's enough use of ice to keep all of the ice miners of Eve employed. But that's something we're very focused on making sure that we kind of address.
All I'm going to say about that is since Citadel's release, fuel blocks have increased across the board from 10 to 20%. That alone seems to suggest that the problem is quite the opposite at the moment. I think that the goal is to, Citadels potentially use less, or structures potentially use less per person, but that structures becoming more and more ubiquitous will actually increase the amount of fuel consumption overall. Also, if they port PI over to tablets, there'll be more supply for PI goods. Yay!
That's over time.
If you could make it more profitable, that'd be awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, generally anytime we have consumption in a game like Eve, it's great because it fuels other people's gameplay, and you get that it kind of just feeds into that cycle of consumption.
And before somebody comments really angrily, yes, they also got Straunt added to their cost, but they, from my understanding, I mean, I've been producing fuel blocks for quite some time, off and on. The consumption seems to have only gone up.
Construction and destruction. So that's always really good to do. That's part of the reason, for instance, that we actually put ICE products into the manufacturing of the ammo for the command bursts. Again, a little bit more usage there. And for buying stuff back, in one form or another, there'll be some buyback programs of POSs in the future. Not quite yet. We're still a ways away from that, but we will get everyone up to date on it once we get closer.
Hi, Ludi.
Hey, Ludi.
Arifis with Goonswarm. My question is, the new skin creator we were showing yesterday at the keynote, is there any plans to give us ability to make corporate colors?
So this is, you want to be able to customize the colors of your skins?
Not so much just create skins for the corporation or the alliance, per se.
So that's something...
You should ask in the art panel, which is...
Tomorrow, I believe.
Tomorrow.
Yeah.
Yeah, you should totally ask those guys.
Yeah, they're going to be the good ones to ask. I think the first step probably in that direction that we'd want to make would be putting Alliance logos on. And that's something we want to do. I can't say for sure when it's going to be, but it is something that we are kind of keeping in mind for the future and that we're sort of working towards.
Thanks.
Operator Dresden, Explicit Alliance. On the Rourke Fleet Bay, it's now going to be the only capital with any restriction on it, even though they all have them. Can we get that lifted, since it doesn't really make a lot of sense anymore?
So you're talking about the ship bay on the Rorqual?
Yeah.
Yeah, so our concern there is actually that it would become a bit too strong for moving ships because we've increased its jump range quite a bit. So I think we'd be hesitant to reduce it right now. We might look at it in the future, though, once we see kind of how the usage evolves with the other changes, because the combination of the jump fatigue reduction on it and the long jump range means that it has the potential to be a little bit too strong if we don't.
Could we at least maybe get an expansion of the ships, maybe to like exploration and other stuff? Some of the non-combat support ships?
That's an interesting idea, yeah.
A lot of tunes that they don't do a lot of combat, but they have a lot of ancillary ships, like travel scepters, exploration ships, wormhole scouting, and those tunes would be good at moving that stuff. And I have a lot of empty workspace, and I have none in my combat capitals.
Yeah, I mean, expanded. I doubt we'd add interceptors into it unless we were pulling the restrictions away entirely. But adding like the exploration frigates and covert ops, maybe. Yeah, it's something that's an interesting idea. It's something I hadn't really considered before, but I'll definitely give it some thought. Yeah.
Luxury yachts, maybe.
Sorry, what was that?
Luxury yachts, maybe.
Maybe. I think that would need to be on a special luxury Rorqual.
Uso Borghese of Rapid Withdrawal and with the Galente Militia. I have a sort of narrow technical question, but it expands on something you said about the NP and faction warfare earlier. I think I speak for most of faction warfare when I say that the idea that faction warfare is in a good place right now is a little concerning. Citadels, for all they're great, have both undermined the basic reason to try to take contested systems and have removed the most important defender advantage for the losing side, which was really important because you can get really steamrolled. When you mentioned the defender missiles, actually I got kind of excited with some of my boys back there because something that could actually at least make it a tiny bit easier to remove the citadels that have completely annihilated the defender advantage. I mean, so I guess my technical question is it a technical requirement that they can't target the void bombs and things like that, or was that a design choice? And if so, why?
That was a design choice. Basically, we just think that would like neuter the power of Citadels significantly, and we didn't want to do that. Like one destroyer could basically shut down bomb launchers on Citadels, so yeah, we didn't really want to go that direction.
Hey, how's it going?
I think that they go into this later. I can't remember exactly where they go into it. It might be later in the same presentation. But one of the things, that point that he just made from our draw is really important for faction warfare guys. The use of Citadels has basically undermined the value of system ownership. And I actually just remembered, and I'm almost certain that they go back into it again. So I'm going to shut up and keep going.
Photoslatro from Hard Knocks Inc. And we recently evicted a wormhole corp that had placed a $75,000 bounty on our hull, specifically our Keep Star. So instead of fighting us...
Is this the self-destruct question?
Yes. Instead of fighting us with their 20-plus capitals, they decided to undock them all and self-destruct them while tethered. Do you guys have a plan for removing that option in the future, or what's going to work?
Yeah, so this is something that the team that had worked on Citadels originally, the old Game of Thrones team, they actually had it planned on their roadmap to do this, which is, I think some people had seen. Nullarbor mentioned that it was something they wanted to do at some point. They just weren't able to get to it. And I think it is something that we're generally in favor of implementing, but I can't say for sure when it would be. I think blocking self-destruct on Tether would be a generally positive thing to do.
Thank you.
With the new ore drones that are based on the rogue drones, have you ever thought of the idea where they revert back to their previous programming and attack their
No
owners?
Hi there, Matt Glebens from the Caldera Militia. In regards to the engineering complexes, have you considered the impact that, as they're significantly cheaper than Astrocus classes, their impact on the faction warfare meta? As my friend Duso just mentioned, that they have significantly broken the faction warfare meta by removing the defender advantage. Do you have any comments on that?
Yep, so they're going to be a bit...
So somebody was saying that they missed the question before this. The question was, since the new excavator drones are based off of rogue drone technology, is there a chance of effectively a massive unforeseen and unfortunate consequences with like drone uprising? And to that CCP Fozzie responds with no comment and a sly smile.
Quite a bit cheaper, but also easier to destroy. So there was a bit of a counterplay addition there. I think the issue, or the way to solve this, isn't to avoid cheaper options for the structures. It's to look at the advantages and the kind of connections to factional warfare. So factional warfare station locking, of course, never affected star bases, but that wasn't a big issue because star bases have a lot less functionality than Citadels. So I think when we do our next pass on FW, we need to address finding an equivalent to the station lockout for Citadels. It might not be as extreme as locking people out from their own Citadels. That might be a bit over the top. But I'd be interested in hearing what the FW community is interested in that, what you guys think would be a good idea. There's options available. We do, for instance, have significantly increased anchor times for Citadels in other people's SOV space in SOV, and that's the kind of feature we could potentially bring in some form into faction warfare as well. So there's some stuff we have the option.
I think that would be good, by the way.
I definitely want to hear from the FW people about what you guys think would be an interesting kind of gameplay for faction warfare, whether it's taking something similar to what we have for SOV or doing something different. Definitely come and talk to us. We talked a little bit about it at the Balance Roundtable earlier today, and I'm sure we'll talk about it more over the weekend.
Okay, thank you very much.
Hi, Chaka Khan from Jaded.
I'm going to talk briefly about that. And again, this is a bigger topic, so we can kind of dig into this another time. But this actually comes into the larger problem about structures. A week to take down a structure is a lot of time in certain things, and that's one of the biggest problems. You know, somebody can plop down a Citadel, and if you can get that through that 15-minute window, that means you have an indefense, or you have undefeatable beachhead for 2 weeks, which in the militia is just an eternity when it comes to an assault. I mean, it's what's causing the assault of Ivonen to be successful right now. So, and Okamon before that. So, you know, it's incredibly impactful, and you know, so I think that forcing more timers or fixing the timer tanking kind of idea a little bit and making them easier to get rid of quickly is going to be where the importance is. But giving that extra anchor time basically gives people more of a chance to build up for the grand fight that stops the beachhead. But I'm not sure if it'll be enough. Here, all right.
In wormhole space, obviously you guys know that scanning is a big deal. Currently, the way that the probe scanner is laid out, even with the new one, there are some limitations with it, specifically for folks like myself who are colorblind. Is there any potential to maybe change that to where in the future the SIGs show up as different colors? Because the red on black is, you know, for some people, damn near impossible to see. So is that something that could be looked at in the future?
Yeah, I think that's a very good point. Ideally, we would use both shape and color in all cases to handle that. I've got red-green color blindness myself, but obviously there's a huge variety of different types of color blindness. I think that's going to be the kind of thing, the best route would be to talk to some of the guys on Psycho Sisters. I'll pass it.
I'm actually really surprised to find out that CCP Fozzie has red-green color blindness, given how bad the interface is for those kinds of people.
Just like get in touch with like Sledgehammer would be a good person to talk to on the forums or anywhere else you can get in contact with them. Email. They're the people that would be able to make some really big changes there because they're the core UI team.
Fair enough.
Thanks.
When are we going to be able to kill ourselves in our own citadels?
Wait, what? When are we going to
In stations, you can kill yourself to like Jita. In citadels, you cannot.
Oh yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, to do essentially just insta-clone or death clone out. For a few, yeah.
To watch CCP Fozzie react as if he'd never heard the idea is a bit disturbing, to be totally honest.
So I don't know how hard it would be, but I think we absolutely should. Most functionality from stations should be in Citadels, and this is no exception. Yeah, I'll add it to the list with some of the other stuff, and we'll take a look. I can't promise it because I don't know if there's other roadblocks, but we'll add it to the list for sure. Thanks.
That's it from the crowd. Sorry to the people who didn't get to ask questions, but these guys will be around.
Yeah, so we've got this is actually perfect timing because it's 1 o'clock anyways right now. We have a game design roundtable at 2 o'clock, right? Yeah. Yes.
All right, and that about wraps it up. So, yeah, that was the Q&A with all of the panel. Obviously, there's a lot of really cool stuff. There's some stuff to discuss and drill down to. Unfortunately, it took a lot longer to walk through it than I expected, so I'm not going to be able to do too much after talk. But obviously, I'm going to be on tomorrow and a bunch next week and all that stuff, and really dissecting Ascension and beyond for everybody and with everybody. So yeah, there you go. Thank you all for watching. If you guys are interested, if you want to absolutely follow my stream, I put on stuff now. I think I've been streaming every single day this last week, doing not only, you know, I'm trying to do all kinds of stuff, fleets, high-sec content, you know, doing exploration, you know, whatever happens to be my fancy. And like I said, when Ascension happens, I'm going to be creating 4 alpha clones, and each alpha clone will be given a personality and goals. And you'll be able to watch those 4 alpha clones kind of go about their business as I will be streaming all of their kind of operations. This is going to be put up on YouTube. I have opted to, I'm going to go through and try to do some video editing before I do that because I made a lot of mistakes. The last panel, or the last one, which was the Keynote one, I actually ported directly from Twitch into YouTube, which was pretty cool. It was a good experiment, so it's now on YouTube, so go ahead and check it out. If you look up Ashtarothi on YouTube, you should be able to find it. Let's see, Twitter, please get a hold of me on Twitter, at Ashtarothi. I'm there all the time. And yeah, so I'm doing a lot of work to try to become a stronger character in kind of this stuff and help you guys understand and conceptualize and engage with EVE Online and show a face and a voice for EVE Online that is unironically enthusiastic and knowledgeable about the game for you guys. I think that it's an important thing, and it's something that I would love to do. In fact, I've already kind of figured out a rebranding for myself, which is the voice of New Eden, which is very kind of bardy, which is my thing. So I hope you like that. I hope it is sufficiently corny enough, and I'll be working on logos and all that kind of stuff. So expect even more crazy stuff. If you like this stuff, it's only going to get better. If you like what I do and you want to support me, by all means, I have a Patreon, and I have a tip donation jar down below that uses PayPal. And I'll be putting out a video that kind of explains why I'm doing that and whatnot very, very soon. I keep saying that. I've been saying that for now 2 weeks, but I do so much content for you guys that I haven't actually stopped to make that video yet. So it's still coming, and I'll find some time to talk about it. Yeah, Ashtarothy's YouTube channel just got linked in the Twitch. Thank you so much for that. And then I also have a Discord, which has been linked a lot in chat. And the one thing I will say is that if you donate something to me, I give you a special supporter tag, which right now there's one person that has it because I have had one tip today, and I need to go back and put the Patreons in as supporters. So thank you all for coming on this amazing journey so far, and we will continue to go. And yeah, so keep helping me build my channel, and I will keep making cool stuff for you. All that being said, thank you. This has been the voice of New Eden, Ashtarothy, and thank you, and I will see you in space. I'm working on the end. I haven't quite figured out my end yet, but either way, we'll see you in space.